What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Meaning of Podcast. I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And this is the podcast where we talk about your favorite directors and the deeper meaning behind their movies. This episode, we're talking about the greatest film franchise of all time, Star Wars, guys. We're going to be talking about what was the creation behind Star Wars with the mind of George Lucas, the OG trilogy, and the prequel trilogy. Maybe a little bit of the new trilogy, but we're going to focus mainly on those two. It depends what RB3 has to say, because he's got hot takes.
Yeah, man.
He's got hot thoughts. Hot thoughts out here, because we're burning hot. Sunny day in Southern California, man.
Right.
THOT as well, because we got thoughts. No, we actually don't got thoughts. Or girls, or crushes. Tony Wagner. I just keep calling him out.
Bro, he's probably gonna comment.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not even reading the comments this episode because I'm such a rebel.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
It's getting controversial. You sure it's not because we shot this?
No, it's because I'm mad at one person in the comment section. I'm just kidding. We actually really do love you guys. We appreciate the comments that you guys send us. Please send us comments. Please. I mean, if you guys are iTunes listeners as well, we appreciate you sending us comments. I think that's a great way to communicate what you feel about each episode or what directors you want to hear about next. We try to do timely directors as much as we can, but we also want to talk about the classics, but also Miyazaki. We want to talk about Miyazaki as well. So we see you, obviously.
Yeah, we want to build our range up. You know what I mean? There's a lot.
The Ridley Scott episode is gonna be fire, bro.
Yeah. We have to wait for Ridley Scott.
We're gonna have rotating guests with the Ridley Scott episode. No, I'm kidding. We're probably not gonna have rotating guests.
We'd have to do a two-part if we do a Ridley Scott.
100%, 100%.
That was a thick.
If anything, like an Alien franchise type shit, because I love Alien franchise, bro.
Yeah, that was slick when we did it with the Nolan, like the Batman ones.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing today with the Star Wars franchise.
The Lucas.
Let's get into it, guys, because we have lots to talk about when it comes to this franchise, and how we're going to talk a little bit about how different outside factors have affected it as well, because I feel like, especially nowadays with the Star Wars fandom and with the disappointing numbers that we saw from Han Solo last week, it's pretty interesting to see. Interesting is a strong word. It's pretty disappointing to see such discord within the Star Wars community, because I felt like it was a cool community, but there's been so many different ups and downs when it comes to different movies.
Last Jedi, Solo.
Yeah, but not just that, but also the prequels. And how like the thoughts coming out of the prequels initially were like, this is cool, and then it was like, after prequels, these are dumb. And now it's, you know,
after the new trilogy.
After the old trilogy. F this, F that. I feel like, what happened, man? Have you guys even watched Star Wars? Have you guys even know what Star Wars is? You know, it's interesting, man, because I feel like this whole like fake Star Wars fan, I saw a lot of that, a few comments on when I was on Movie Talk last week. And I think that's such an interesting term coming from certain people. Fake Star Wars fan. Because
I mean, you know, the whole gatekeeper mentality is super annoying. Like,
it's so annoying, man. Especially with Star Wars specifically, because I feel like this whole thought about killing your childhood or killing what your thoughts of a certain movie is pretty interesting, considering how Star Wars has always been something incredibly political, and it's always been political and social commentary on whether what was going on in the past or what was going on in the present. But let's get into that a little bit with the initiation of Star Wars and the mind behind it, which was George Lucas when he created it. When he created Star Wars, he definitely wanted to do a fun kind of space movie that was referencing the serialized stuff that he saw back in the day on TV and stuff, when it comes to the old school black and white films too. But it was also obviously kind of not a ripoff, but inspired by a Flash Gordon type as well.
Right, Flash Gordon, a lot of Akira Kurosawa.
You're right, Akira Kurosawa as well.
Yeah. I
forgot the name of the film that he named, but he named the specific film.
Right, there's one specific one that references a lot, and fuck, man, I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But it was like right after Seven Samurai. I feel like I know which one it is. They have a whole Star Wars class at USC. So like in that class, they show you like all of the influences that influenced the Star Wars, right? So you see like the Kurosawa films, you see the westerns like the John Ford, The Searchers is one particular that played a lot of influence to Lucas and crafting like the space western kind of deal. The Flash Gordon, kind of sci-fi influences, the serialized stuff. So all of that plays a heavy hand into what Lucas is trying to do here. Yeah,
but it's also Star Wars. This is the meaning of. So we're gonna get into a little bit of the purpose behind the movie. It was also a commentary on kind of the old school, like black and white, but also the whole point of the Empire is that it is an empire. The fact that it is a very imperial mentality of locating planets and kind of colonizing those planets and taking the planet's resources, taking the planet's culture, dictating the planet's culture, dictating the planet's language, kind of implementing their own thoughts, their own philosophy, their own political ideals onto these planets that don't want interference and that don't want the Empire to meddle in their affairs and to kind of take the great of what they have and downplay what they have as a culture as well, which is very much a commentary on what America was doing, right? And obviously what the Nazis did too back in World War II, which is a direct reference from what it is, but it comes from the nationalism type feel of I'm the best. This is mine. Security. War. I'm the one who has the biggest army. I'm the one who has the biggest power. Therefore, I'm going to use my power and control to influence other people, other markets, other cultures to dictate how I feel and how I feel like things should be run.
Right. I mean, I think in particular when we talk about Return of the Jedi, that's definitely one that's more of, that's a commentary on the pro-American nationalism kind of aspect of, a lot of times a lot of people consider it, I think even George Lucas went as far as to call like his Vietnam film, Return of the Jedi at least, because especially with the Ewoks, right? The Ewoks are supposed to represent that, or the battle on
Endor.
Battle on Endor, right? How that's like his commentary on the Vietnamese on Vietnam War, right? The quote unquote savages, this quote unquote like non-traditional army, right? Like
using their terrain, using their resources, using natural resources to fight a bigger technologically advanced army.
Right, and winning. You're right, right. So then that's why. I think that plays a big part into when you talk about how it reflects the America imperialism. I think that's where the commentary for that. I definitely think that the original one in particular, New Hope, that's very much a World War II kind of thing, right? Right? With the Nazis, with the whole setup of the stormtroopers and Darth Vader, like these murderous brutes who like go from country to country, just taking over and like destroying planets and destroying worlds, just for the sake of like being power hungry and stuff like that. It's a big, and even and that's what influenced a lot of the fight scenes too, right? Particularly like the space battles and Star Wars.
It is a World War II feel.
Right.
And that comes directly from George Lucas's interest in World War II, right?
He was a historian he was a history buff, right? Like he knew a lot about World War II. He cared a lot about World War II, and that's what influenced a lot of like those battles. I think even they talk about when we talked about in the last episode with the Brian De Palma documentary and the Steven Spielberg documentaries, they kind of talk about how like when they were screening Star Wars originally, he would cut to like in the middle of the battles before they had the visual effects done, he would just cut to like random World War II footage of like the ships that he would imagine that would later be replaced with the actual visual effects.
I do remember that. I haven't seen the documentary, but I did see that footage. That he would cut within World War II footage.
He would literally just cut in World War II footage whenever like he didn't have the visual effects for that thing done, but then like that's what he was trying to achieve, and he would show that to his visual effects people. So I mean that's why he cares. So that's why they have a very tactile type feel. Like you talked about the cockpit feel, like that's very much influenced by like the World War II like aesthetic, right?
So. And it's also the fascination with aerial combat, right?
Right.
Because aerial combat was such a big part of World War II. Because aerial combat's like a whole different level. Like for anyone who's in the Air Force too, and it's like you have to worry about angles, you have to worry about people on your tail, you have to worry about all this kind of stuff that that he does even in A New Hope when Han and Luke are fighting off the TIE fighters that are chasing them.
Right.
It comes from that kind of mentality of like people in aerial combat dealing with those situations. It comes directly from World War II. So that's a huge influence because he has that fascination of like a pilot being able to take down enemies in a much more advantageous field, which is the air, and in this case space in Star Wars too. Right. And it's funny because a lot of people make fun of the science of Star Wars and how that makes no sense. Right. And in the explosions and gravity and all that type of stuff that happens in Star Wars. But it is very much a fascination with that World War II mentality. And you're right about the stormtroopers, going back to that. It's also the uniform of the stormtroopers, right? And how they're all very much black, white, gray uniform, especially the admirals in the movies, because they're wearing very, 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 very Nazi type outfits, because they have that tight uniform, they have the little hats. It looks super Nazi. Right. And that's very much the purpose of it too. But it's also the colors of it too, because I feel like color plays a huge part, especially with A New Hope, with the white, with the gray, and obviously Darth Vader wearing the all black. Talk a little bit about how color plays a role, because I feel like color, specifically with the white stormtroopers, signifies how they view themselves as purity and how they view themselves as pure. It also goes back to how the peacekeepers in Hunger Games wear all white as well. Oh shit! That's the 7th Hunger Game reference. What y'all gonna do?
Yeah, put that in there.
But how the peacekeepers in Hunger Games wear all white as well, to signify how they're pure and how they keep the peace and how everything they're doing is for a purpose and it's for kind of the proper way of doing things, and we have to keep ourselves pure and rid of the wrongness and the dirtiness of our previous mistakes and our previous sins, is how the peacekeepers why they use the white. But how the stormtroopers use it as well is also that kind of uniform mentality of like they're all all white for a purpose, and how they view themselves as the correct way of doing things, as the pure way of doing things, as the empire state of mind kind of thing, where everyone is in this hive mind mentality of the correct and proper and right way of doing a certain thing is what the emperor dictates. And that verbalizes that with the white uniform.
Right. And I think that's the biggest aspect of like why they are so an efficiently menacing villain, right? Because or not villain, but like a threat to like these heroes, because they feel all unified. They feel like one force that are like acting like soldiers. That's what the whole idea of uniforms and the military is, right? To act as a united front. So that's why they all have like the same kind of monochromatic, is that the right term? But I don't know if it's monochromatic because they're white, but whatever. Like the whole uniform, like the one white lingering presence, because it represents the control, the power, the reflection of like how they see themselves as like these clean operative like soldiers who are operating at the sake of the galaxy of the empire, this controlling force, this authoritarian force, like that. So I
it's the mindset too, right? It's like these guys are all in the same mindset.
Right.
Like they're gonna attack us with the same mind, because they're fighting for their cause, which is their god, which is the emperor, which is basically their god in the entire process of it too. Right. It also goes back to what the signification of that white color, references of that too, but it's also the grays too, because I feel like it's specifically I feel like the with Tarkin and with the other admirals that kind of join him, it signifies specifically off the uniform mentality for the Nazis too, but also I think when he comes with the black with Darth Vader, it's very much just an old school, dark knight, dark cowboy, black hat cowboy type of mentality where he's like the old school. I'm just here to tear shit up. I'm just evil kind of thing too. Do you feel that way too?
No, definitely. I think that's the biggest. I mean, that's why. That's why he's all colored out. It's that again, we talk about the menacing force with like the white, the spread out that stands out amongst the crowd. I think that's why the white is there too, because they stand out amongst like the savagery, the dirty like universe that's there. But then it's also the black is to show like this heartless, cold, soulless being who is just willing to like kill and snap somebody's neck or like choke somebody out. Or like whoop them with a lightsaber or whatever, like, you know what I mean? So like that's what the black is, you know what I mean? It's like that power, that force, you know, the unknown, the mystery. What we like the thing we know least about is what scares us the most. So I think that's what it definitely represents.
Yeah, for sure.
It wasn't I don't know. I just kind of brought me on this like weird tangent, but like I saw some like behind the scenes footage or whatever of the dude saying of the dude who was the actual body of the Darth Vader. Yeah, I think his name's like Mike Posner or something like that. But
Mike Posner? Isn't that the singer?
Or maybe he is the singer. I don't know. Yeah, I think that is the singer. But some shit. I forgot the guy. What song did he do, man? What song was that he?
What, Mike Posner?
Yeah, Posner. Yeah.
Is it Cooler Than Me?
Cooler Than Me. Yeah. Cooler Than Me.
That song is shit.
That shit, oh man, that shit was
not the shit. Shit.
That song was baller back in like 2008.
I hate that song.
2008. Anyway,
that song.
Back to the guy. I can't remember the guy who played Vader or whatever. But
pretty sure it was Mike Posner.
Yeah, something like that. But the dude said in some interview like he's obviously very salty about like not getting to be the voice of Darth Vader too. He was like, oh yeah, I think Lucas was really going for this big threatening black voice with this black man playing this black character.
Yeah, I think the problem was, as you obviously realise, I have a West Country accent.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
very slight, very slight. And I don't think they could do Darth Vader with an English accent. That was the big problem. And also, you see, the character being a big black character that he is, I think George really wanted an obvious black voice, and they've got James Earl Jones in to do it. And to me, there is a very obvious Negro voice.
Like that shit is just so funny. Like he was just really, I don't know. So again, I mean, maybe that's not the intention that Lucas was going for, but like that threatening kind of presence, and that's why he needed a voice like, you know, James Earl Jones who comes in and like, oh, this looming presence, this looming thing. And, you know, we talked about sound design in the last episode. The whole, like, breathing.
The hopper. Well, I used to call it as a kid the hopper.
Hopper. I never heard that.
As a kid, I would call it the hopper because he would go, like, that was how he breathed. So I was like, oh, cool.
That's nice. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's that classic. Dude, I'm telling you, I watched. We didn't do this, but let's do it right now. I'm gonna start it off. First time, a new segment on the Meaning of Podcast. The little letters come out from RB3. Shout out, and RB3 is like, I ain't doing that shit in post.
Hey,
literally writes it out on screen. I ain't doing that shit. But my first time watching the original trilogy was with the re-release of the original Star Wars into the VHS tapes, which was the special edition, I believe, right? That was a VHS, right? It was 1997, I believe.
97, yep.
And that came with new toys. That came with the VHS re-release. That came with the three VHSs of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. I watched A New Hope because my dad liked Star Wars, and he thought he would introduce it to us as kids, me and my brother. And we watched the movies, and immediately, I clinged directly to Darth Vader as a kid. As a kid, I remember thinking, and this is me as a kid, always liking the villains, and always liking the guys who wear black. I love black because I always wear black.
Right.
As I'm currently wearing black right now, because I always do. It's one of those things where I cling to that, and I cling to that presence of like you said, black hat, badass, huge voice, heavy breathing guy who's saying Hopper all the time, like, and that to me was like the coolest thing ever. And I remember watching these shows, and also it comes to like from the mind of a child, because I was a child, I was like 6 or something,
right.
Thinking about the mentality of what you're taking in, right? Because you probably don't understand everything that it comes to when it comes down to the political atmosphere, or when it comes to the even the story in general. You probably don't capture most of it as a kid, as a 5 or 6 year old.
Right.
But what you do capture is the visuals, and it comes to the feelings that you get from the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And watching the original Star Wars for me as a kid was watching the idea of a sword. I think that's the biggest thing. The fact that it says Jedi Knight. The fact that it has that connotation of like a knight, of an old school guy with a mask and a sword who's going to kick ass and just tear everyone apart because he's so skilled with a weapon that appears to be outdated. And yet the wrinkle that Lucas introduces is the idea of blocking laser blasts. Even though laser blasts appear to be the most technologically advanced weapon of all time, it's the idea of like, I'm so fast and I'm so badass that I can legit block that shit. And the idea of that as a kid to me was just awesome, because I wanted a lightsaber right away, right? Because that's the aesthetic of a Star Wars film, is wanting that lightsaber. The idea of a laser sword, a sword that can literally cut through anything and is just made of pure light and pure energy, and you can still use it to like battle people. That is the aesthetic that I took in the most as a kid. And obviously Luke Skywalker, and the fact that he also wears all white throughout the movie too, which is a very interesting point too, to signify kind of like his innocence too.
Right. And then his costume evolves throughout the original trilogy, right? He goes from white to
gray, and Empire Strikes Back he's wearing gray, and obviously Return of the Jedi he's wearing all black. Yeah. But for me, taking that in as a kid, and then obviously following it up with Empire Strikes Back, following it up with Return of the Jedi, which is probably the one that I cling to the most because of what you just said. And it's crazy because as a child, that's what we take in. We take in the aesthetic, we take in the colors, we take in the look, the feel. And that's what I took in. I took in Luke wearing that black glove. I will never forget that black glove, watching it as a kid and watching the two go back to forth, and watching Darth Vader take down the Emperor and kind of turn to the good side. And kind of thinking about that as a child, thinking about like, oh shit, the character who's evil and messed up and I've always loved is a good guy now. I feel good now. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, as a kid watching that, I was like, man, this is amazing. And obviously the toys, because my brother had the Han Solo character. I had Luke, the little Luke action figure. I fought for the Darth Vader action figure. We had the huge scale size Millennium Falcon. My brother had that one. It came with like the Chewbacca. Like, I was obsessed with Star Wars right off the special edition. What about you, RB3? Talk to me about the first time you saw a Star Wars movie in general. Any Star Wars movie.
Any
the very first time.
All right,
like, you could be 4, you could be 5, because I think I was like 5 or 6.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've seen like I got introduced to Star Wars from the games, like from the
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which games? The pod racing game?
No.
Oh, I was gonna say you were probably like 1 when that came out.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't around for that. It was the I
played that game religiously.
Force Unleashed, bro. The Force Unleashed and the Force Unleashed 2.
Oh my god, dude, you're like 5 years old. How old are you, man?
Hey, man, when those came out,
Force Unleashed, I was like 13.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was like 7, 8, something like that. So like, not too far off, but like that was when that was like my first introduction. You look at the camera. That was my first introduction to Star Wars. At least like so.
Shout out to Sam Witwer.
Yeah. Sam Witwer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got it. You know what? I've seen that guy. I've seen him at the Collision shit. I've seen him at a bunch of.
Oh, you haven't met him?
I have met him, but like
okay.
I've never like. I should honestly like ask him for a picture or something. Like, Jesus Christ, he influenced what I like about Star Wars.
Yeah, I knew him mainly from Being Human. Shout out to Being Human, the sci-fi show. Oh,
it's dope. I made him the little Star Wars belt.
You did. I remember when you made that. Star Wars belt. Because I'm the one who brought it in.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Literally.
You just gave it to me.
I gave you the Heroes belt too. The Inner Geek. In case you guys don't know, for like half of the belts in the Inner Geek or the Schmodown.
RB3.
Yeah, man, Schmodown, dog.
It's all gonna be mine soon, guys.
Hey, man, get that.
Watch for my entrance, guys. It's coming. It's really not coming.
Get to that Inner Geekdom, bro.
Hey, man, still haven't done it.
Yeah,
still haven't been asked to do it.
Man, I'm gonna walk in with. I don't know if I could participate in the regular Schmodowns anymore. I'm kind of 0-2, you know. I don't know if they're ever gonna bring me back, but hopefully one of these days.
Hey, man, at least you got your shot. I still haven't got my shot.
Hey, man. Hey, by the way, they're having or they had by this point the live event.
Oh yeah, they already had that.
Yeah. Did you go to that or?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah? Okay.
Of course I didn't.
Cool.
I don't go to anything Schmodown related.
Schmodown, man.
I don't, because Yeah, I'm good.
yeah. I'm usually at home just like editing, like trying to get the graphics.
Yeah, no, honestly, I didn't go to that. Sorry, guys. I didn't meet you guys.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry, y'all. If you ever watch the Schmodown and you see like the graphics, like a wrong statistic, just know that's me. And it's an accident. Accidents happen, guys.
It's unacceptable, guys.
Yeah.
Either way, back to The Force Unleashed.
Force Unleashed. Yeah, that was my shit, man. So I had that
That
game.
was your introduction to Star Wars? You didn't see any other movie before that?
Nah,
you didn't see the
man.
prequels? Because the prequels were before that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't care about the prequels. Like, when I was a little kid, my cousin did. My cousin was big on prequels. I also grew up in a very, like, religious household. So, like, they didn't want me seeing, like, anything. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't see
so did I. My parents didn't want me seeing anything, too. But Star Wars was, like, the one exception.
I didn't see Harry Potter.
I didn't see Harry Potter either.
I didn't see Lord of the Rings.
My parents didn't let me watch Harry Potter.
I didn't.
But Harry Potter's different because he's, like, magic and shit.
Yeah, source, but they didn't want me to see anything, dog. They saw me. They had me.
Come on.
Only thing I really saw was like Pixar movies when I was a little kid. Really, honestly. So like, I didn't see like Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. None of that shit.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Literally, Star Wars was my only one. I'm not even joking.
Yeah.
That's why I love it so much, and I still love it till this day.
I had the superhero. They let me see the superheroes.
Oh, superheroes too. Yeah.
Yeah, they let me see that. But
Justice League was my shit.
Yeah.
Batman the animated series, Superman the animated series.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't watch
Force Unleashed. That's crazy.
Force Unleashed was it.
So what was the first movie that you watched?
The Phantom Menace 3D re-release.
Wasn't that shit like 3 years ago?
Yeah, it was like 2011, bro. Yeah.
That's the first time you watched Star Wars?
Yeah, first time I watched the Star Wars movie. Yeah, fully.
Oh
yeah.
my god.
But of course, like,
take that shirt off right now, RB3.
No, but
I mean that in the most. No,
bro, but by that point though, I had already known like Star Wars though. You know what I mean? Like Family Guy. I saw his Family Guy specials, the Robot Chicken shit.
That shit doesn't count.
I've seen all the parodies before I saw like the actual movie, so I knew what it was. You know what I mean? But then watching the Phantom Menace. Okay, so here's the thing. I watched the Phantom Menace. I was like, and I saw it in the 3D release shit, and I was like, yo, this shit is garbage. I don't know what the fuck this Star Wars shit is about. So then, like, I went and then I was like reading more online, like, what is this? And then apparently people hate the prequels. So then, like, I went back and watched. They used to show them on Spike TV a lot. The original.
That's right. They always show them on Spike.
Yeah.
Shout out to Spike TV.
Yeah, Spike TV. So I went home and then I found them on Spike TV. I recorded them on a little DVR TiVo shit, and then like watched them that way. So then from that point on, I was like, oh, okay, I get these are awesome. Like these are really fun.
Okay, so fucking movies. The original trilogy.
The original trilogy was what brought me in, and then I went back and watched Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith after that. And then caught up on
the new trilogy.
Yeah,
dude, I forget how young you are. That's wild.
Yeah, well, dude, I mean, I also like. It wasn't like I was in like I knew some of the Star Wars stuff. Like I did, like my best friend and my cousin both used to watch Clone Wars. So I would just literally watch like random episodes of Clone Wars like every now and then.
Clone Wars is amazing. Yeah. I'm obsessed. I still love Clone Wars. I watched that stuff like when it was coming out, like current, when it was airtime, and when it was confusing as hell because it would tell you like what's going on, and it was all like freaking so confusing, and I still loved it.
Then some of it like non-chronological.
It was non-chronological, yeah. So that's why I was always confused, and I loved it. I was like, I'm confused. Give me more. That's crazy, man. Yeah, but for me, it was the original trilogy. Funny enough, right before. Think about this. Right before the prequels is when I got into Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like I got introduced to Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Darth Vader.
Well, that was the point.
All these characters.
That was the point of the re-releases too.
I know.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
it got
what
me.
did.
Like I'm one of the victims of the little freaking net that they threw out into the ocean and railed me up.
Right.
With the re-releases to get new fans, and they got me because even though that's kind of, you're right. That's a good point. That's why he did the special effects, right? Because the special effects are so outdated, and yet when he did the re-release, he tried to update the special effects to make it more digestible for new audiences, for people who are much more used to special effects being like Jurassic Park level special effects, right?
Right.
So that's a good point as far as like why he re-released it. Obviously, people hate the re-release, the special editions re-release, because of the stuff that he added.
Yeah.
Because he made it sillier and because he made more CGI characters. But he got me, and he reeled me right back in, and I bought all the toys. I got the lightsaber. I got freaking like, I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. I loved Darth Vader. Like I played with the action figures. We got the toys. Like that was my obsession now, and I was currently obsessed with Star Wars, and then obviously the prequels came out.
And that's funny because again I mentioned this book a lot in the last episode, the how Star Wars conquered the universe.
I'm gonna read it, I swear.
They talked about there's a whole chapter in there where they talked about I referenced it a lot because I reread it like in preparation for like this
episode.
Yeah,
and then me, I just watched the prequel documentaries. That's what I did, like behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, I didn't. I gotta watch. See the prequels are the thing I'm like the lightest on. So like
the prequels are the thing I'm the heaviest on.
Okay, so
we're gonna get into it.
We have a balanced thing here, but it's so interesting how they're kind of talking about the context of like the Star Wars fandom like before the re-releases, right? Because everything was just they're just random novels and books and comics that are coming out,
and sometimes little shows and
right. But the Star Wars fandom was kind of dying out, like literally like fading into obscurity. Son Lucas brought out the re-releases to kind of reinvigorate it, and plus announced the prequels with that too, and it got the whole world hyped. Like I don't know, like the best, I guess the best comparable example is like pre-Force Awakens, right? Or how with you, like so you were young, like how were you hyped for like these prequel, like was that like the biggest talk of like the Arizona
it was Texas
playground, Texas Texas playgrounds, like was that
dude so we were gonna see how Darth Vader got burned. That was like the big talk too, for real. I mean, obviously that was mainly before episode 3, but it was gonna be like, yo, they're gonna make a movie about like Darth Vader, like before he was Darth Vader. It's gonna be crazy. And I'm like, yo, Darth Vader was someone before he was Darth Vader. It's like, remember Anakin when he says that name, Anakin? I'm like, yo, that's crazy. Yeah, of course, it was all the hype. Yeah. Like especially, I remember clearly walking into like Toys R Us and walking into there. And on the wall of Toys R Us, you would see
R.I.P. Toys R Us, by the way.
R.I.P. Toys R Us, man. Toys R Us was my childhood. And right there, you would see the Slave One. And on the other section, you would see the Millennium Falcon, like the huge box that was like this big. It was enormous. And then you saw the action figures of Han Solo and Boba Fett and all these characters that I fell in love with watching the original trilogy. And then getting hype for the prequel trilogy, getting excited to see it, because I would rewatch the special editions over and over again as like a therapeutic mindset of like put me in a trance of Star Wars, because I was so addicted to it. And then obviously leading into the prequels, which is what you said, just announced it.
And then and that's
what toys help so much though. And it's a lot of things, especially nowadays. What we're seeing now with Disney buying it too is like toys are important.
Yeah, that's money. I mean,
it's money. It's commodity.
Apparently, Lucas has signed like a $400 million deal with Hasbro for the toy rights, and that wasn't even that was non-exclusive. So like they still license products to Legos and all this kind of shit. So it was crazy amounts of money being put in.
Legos. I also had Star Wars Legos.
Damn. Yeah. See, I read that apparently like that like Legos was like dying. Like that was and the decision to license Lego toys was the CEO. I said they would never license anything. They would never license any Star Wars toys. But then they licensed the Star Wars toys, which was their first licensing deal they ever did, pre Harry Potter, pre Lord of the Rings, pre all that stuff. And it ended up making them a boatload of money. Actually ended up saving the company and turning profitability. And same thing with Hasbro. Hasbro made $2 billion off of Star Wars toys during this time. And again, they were talking about how the fandom, the fan club had reached an all-time high. Lucas came up with this idea of doing a Star Wars celebration in order to hype up the prequels, because of widening the wave of the special editions. I mean, I guess during that time, not a lot of people hated the special editions, right? Like, because that was just seeing.
I can't talk because I was.
You're young, yeah. You're young, yeah.
that was my first time seeing it. So
right.
I loved it.
Have you had like a lingering desire to see the original cuts?
Sure. I have. As like a super crazy Star Wars fan that I am, I have seen it. Yeah,
I had to bury out those fucking, what was they called, like the unrestored editions or whatever. Like, you have to dive.
I have old friends, so let's just say that's all they talk about.
Right.
They talk about how I'm like unworthy in their presence because I grew up with that stuff.
Right.
And that's what I will never. That's another thing. Let's do it. Let's talk about it now, because this is a natural conversation. The Star Wars fandom and how it comes to, like, I had this little article that I had written a long time ago, talking about a little bit about Star Wars is all about generations. Star Wars is about what is currently going on in the political climate of that time period, and what is currently going on, because I really do feel like the prequels are about that too. and what is currently going on in the age climate too, because I feel like so many fandom nowadays, and especially I get that too, especially talking about it on Movie Talk, how I say, you know, if they're gonna make a Boba Fett movie, which the Hollywood Reporter said like a week and a half ago that they were gonna do that, how I said, let's put a Maori actor in there. Let's put a New Zealand actor, because there's so many great New Zealand actors. And then I got pushback by saying, oh, how dare you, the original Boba Fett. And it's like, who gives a shit about the original Boba Fett? Because I feel like I don't give a shit about the original Boba Fett. He just jumped into the Scarlet Pit and he just died. Who gives a shit? I give a shit about the Attack of the Clones Jango Fett and how he connects into that. So that's my perspective, right? And how everything in the Star Wars fandom is connected to what generations you grew up with, right? So when I talk to 36-year-olds who are slightly older than me, because I'm not that far behind when it comes to age, people talk to me, it's like, oh, special edition, oh, how dare you, oh, the prequels, oh, those are terrible. And it's me, for me, I'm like, that's what I grew up with, man. Yeah. You grew up with your shit and you love that shit. I grew up with my shit and I love my shit. Like, back off kind of thing is kind of my mentality behind it, because I feel like it's like, you're not better than me because you grew up in a different generation than me. You're not. Like, you think you are, but you're not. You know what I'm saying? It's like this mentality of like, I'm older, I'm wiser. It's like, nah, man, you're like 6 or 7 years older than me and you're definitely not wiser than me. So stop acting like you are just because you grew up with the original trilogy where nothing was changed. Like, for me, it's like, no, I grew up with mine and I feel like mine is still pretty cool too. Like, obviously, we'll get into the prequels and discuss how certain things didn't work and did work for me personally. But when it comes to Star Wars in general and to fandom, I really do feel like it's important to realize that at the end of the day, I think generations are the deciding factor of what is and what isn't quality, right? There's so many people nowadays that I see, even on my Instagram and on my Twitter, of younger kids, 14, 13-year-olds, really clinging to Rey and Kylo Ren. As much shit as people talk about Rey and Kylo Ren, I feel like they're the best part of the new trilogy. And I feel like there's a lot of potential with their characters. And a lot of people like Rey and a lot of people like Kylo. And I really do give a lot of pushback, especially when it comes to masculinity and especially when it comes to the male perspective. I really do feel like I said before on our Last Jedi review, like a lot of people being like, Star Wars is all women now. And I'm like, Kylo Ren's a dude. And he's like a big, giant white dude. So if you're a big dude or you're a white dude, you can like Kylo Ren. Like, I don't see how there's this line dividing, gender dividing fandom. I don't see that at all. I still see a lot of badass dudes in Star Wars like Poe Dameron and Kylo Ren and a bunch of cool dudes in Star Wars and also some cool girls in Star Wars. I think it's fine to have both. But I do feel like when it comes to fandom battles and generational battles, it's kind of dictated by age, and I feel like that's kind of stupid. And I've talked to you about that too, even when it comes to like just movie conversations in general. I really do feel, and this is me going off on a tangent, I know, I understand, but I do feel like when it comes to movie discussion and movie conversation, there's this big inclination to cater to an older film critic or an older reviewer, an older article writer as a wiser, more powerful, more knowledgeable person. I'm not that old, but I'm also not that young. But I do feel like I can keep up with any of those guys, and I feel like you can keep up with any of those guys, and you're a child. So when you use a child, so for me,
I'm 21 next week, y'all.
You're a child, basically. So for me, that's I feel like that there's so much stuff when it comes to Hollywood and age where I am 43 years old, therefore I am old and wise, and it's like, no, you're a 43-year-old nerd who should get a life and let me do what your job is. Right. Like, yeah, for me, it's like everyone kind of caters to that, and it's like he's an old person who is wise, and I'm like, no, he's not. I mean, he's seen as many movies as I've seen, maybe more. Sure, it doesn't matter. I'm younger. I can watch other movies there. I have a different perspective than you do. I have a different generational perspective than you. I'm just as knowledgeable as you are. I went to just as good a school as you did, and I can write just as well as you write. Like, there's this weird kind of mentality of superiority when it comes to older generations that I feel has to die out, and I want to be the one to spark that shit. But I feel like that's so key when it comes to Star Wars, man. Like, really, that's really key when it comes to, like, I was there when the original trilogy came out, therefore I stand above you, little generational young kid. And I'm like, no, I don't care if you're 50, bro. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, you're not a bigger Star Wars fan than me because you saw Alec Guinness the first time, or like, I don't know. That's just, to me, Star Wars fandom has to understand that.
Right. I mean, it's always been that whole like gatekeeper like kind of thing too. I mean,
but when it comes to age, it bothers me. It's like I was there, and it's like, who gives a shit if you were there?
Right.
I don't care.
Right. No, I mean that's what fandom is, dog. It's like justifying how much of a bigger fan you are. Like, and I feel like that's really toxic, and I feel like that's definitely why you see a lot of people of color and a lot of women like being discriminated against in this community because they're not, because you know the old white man is telling us what they believe is their true how much better they understand it.
We talked about it as a whole, how Star Wars is starting to branch out into more of a diverse perspective, and yet at the end of the day, and I talked to you about this, and you were the one who brought this up, and I always go back to this when people bring this up, is at the end of the day, this new trilogy that everyone's talking about how diverse it is, they still got 2 white leads leading the charge. They still got a white brunette lady. Shout out to Rey, but she's a white brunette lady leading the charge, and they got a white angry white dude leading the charge.
So all directed by white guys too. By the way,
it's all directed by white guys. So shout out to white people because you guys are still king of Star Wars.
Y'all still winning. Hey, by the way, I feel like every week they announce
and it's cool. I like white people, and I think you guys
I love white people.
I think you guys have Star Wars. You really do. Like, think about it. Your 2 main characters are white leads. You guys have it. And all directed by white dudes.
I mean, like,
come on, you guys have it. Don't be mad. Don't get salty.
I feel like every week they announce a new Star Wars movie, and it's
directed by another white guy.
Yeah,
and you're like, shout out to white people. There you go.
Boba Fett, James Mangold. Right, there you go. Right. I don't know. So
for me, it's like, I mean, come on, let's chill out a little bit. I think people who get offended by that are slightly racist, if not completely racist. Because at the end of the day, man, it's like if you're getting mad about Finn. Come on, bro. Finn doesn't do shit. Like, come on. Like, at the end of the day,
he was mishandled in Last Jedi.
He was really mishandled in the Last Jedi. He doesn't do jack shit.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Yeah. At the end of the day, Kylo is like the main character.
Yeah. Complaining for somebody being black just because they're black, that's offensive and that's racist, definitely. I do also think though there is a certain extent of like, I don't know how much we were allowed to complain about Rose. Like how, I don't know if I think Rose is a terrible character, but I also feel bad for complaining about the one Asian girl that we get in Star Wars, I think placement is important. I think it's not just key in order of casting, but I think it's key in order of like defining a cast member that's going to be important, right? Because you're not going to give if you're not going to give a certain role into a cast member and cast them as a diverse cast, whether it be Asian, whether it be black, whether it be Latino, you have to give them a purpose. You can't just be like, yo, look, it's an Asian girl. Or yo, look, it's a black guy. Yo, look, it's a Latino guy. Like, you have to give him a role. You have to give him a purpose. So at the end of the day, like I posted on Twitter last week about Diego Luna. Like, at the end of the day, Diego Luna is one of the reasons why I loved Rogue One, because he actually had a purpose in that movie compared to other Latin characters who have smaller purposes in other Star Wars movies or other movies in general. Because I feel like at the end of the day, people can be like, yo, there's a guy who's kind of brown in the background. But it's like, I don't care. Right. He doesn't do shit. Why would I care? You know what I'm saying? Like, give me a purpose, give me a role, give me a leading role, and then we'll see how diverse Star Wars is. Like, we talked about that with Solo too. How at the end of the day, Lucasfilm is like, yeah, we're branching out. Let's make another movie about a white guy. Right.
And everyone's mad. Ugh, Star Wars pushing diversity. It's a white guy.
We haven't really had a person of color lead.
We haven't. So it's 0. You know how many person of colors have led a Star Wars movie? 0.
Yeah, Diego Luna is probably the closest.
Diego Luna is the closest one, which is why I enjoy Rogue One, because of Diego Luna.
Right.
But yeah, for me, that's my Star Wars introduction as a kid, and that's how I visualized it. So I don't get that kind of feedback from it. So unlike other people who feel like they're the lords of Star Wars and the gatekeepers of Star Wars, like you say, gatekeeper.
The gatekeepers,
And I think your face is about to be burned off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, Jesus, I'm turning into the Phantom Zone right now. Like.
Hey, man, we'll see if we can finish this before you get completely turned into ash like a vampire.
Or like that guy in Solo when there's something like his in the beginning.
Oh, Proxima.
Yeah, Lady
Shout
Proxima.
out to how many people are named Proxima in this damn freaking 2018.
Yeah, I was gonna say
you got Proxima Midnight. And also you got Midnight from My Hero Academia. Shout out to My Hero Academia.
That's another one. I've been wanting to get into that for the longest time.
My Hero Academia is awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. I tweet a lot about it now. I'm starting to tweet more about it. But yeah, let's finish up about A New Hope, because I feel like A New Hope has all those themes, but it also has the classic hero's journey. Let's talk about a little bit about the hero's journey, because that's what Luke represents. It's about Luke, a kid kind of minding his own business, doing his own thing, but dreaming of more, kind of dreaming of the stars and dreaming of branching out and doing more and having a bigger purpose in his life than just being a moisture farmer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
my favorite Luke line ever is like, but I was going to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters. Yeah. Never let that down. I'll always love that line.
Yeah, man.
It's the most complaining line of all time.
That's the most Lucasy line, I think, that made it through the filter there.
That made it through the OG. Yeah. Because there's some Lucasy lines in the prequels that we're going to talk about. Yeah. Every line is a Lucas line in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, Lucas is obviously very inspired by the Joseph Campbell model of the hero journey story, right? Like the it depends on which one you look at, but there's typically 12 or 13 or 17 steps of the hero journey story that each kind of represent like this pattern in like classic literature that's very important to what we consider modern filmmaking today. So that was very much the biggest part of like the story structure that was implemented here. And you see that kind of same story structure in like Lord of the Rings, the Iliad from like Homer or whatever. All these classic pieces of literature follow that same model, and he follows that model very closely here, right? The call to action, the refusal of the call, the magical wizard who's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and even the way Star Wars introduced that into the context of the science fiction story, it kind of became more influential in the fact that more storytellers kind of piggybacked off of that too, right? Like with The Matrix, with all of these different type of movies that utilize the hero journey story in an effective type of way. So super crazy how big of an impact that Joseph Campbell had on this universe, and in turn how this universe impacted a bunch of other filmmakers to tell those kind of stories later on.
Yeah, and it's a classic kind of journey that we see in so many different stories nowadays. That's absolutely true. How about the Han Solo character, especially in A New Hope, because we're going to talk about him a lot more in the other movies. But what do you feel like the Han Solo character kind of signifies into these movies? The first one.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that. To me, that's where I kind of don't think a Han Solo movie works. Is like where New Hope is kind of his origin story, right? Like he kind of has that arc of being the lone scoundrel, doesn't want to talk to anybody, doesn't want to be involved in any of this.
And he's kind of a pirate too, right? He's kind of got like not necessarily like in the sense of like his occupation, like this is what I do, I'm a pirate, kind of. But it's mainly like the pirate swag that he has, the pirate mentality that he has, the gun for hire, the guy who does whatever he wants, and he's like, how much you gonna pay me, fam? Like that kind of guy.
Exactly, and he utilizes that really well in the beginning. With
I just thought of Han Solo being like, yo, how much you gonna pay me, fam?
Right.
After I said it, I'm like, yeah.
that'd be funny if he played like this kind of gangster thing. But that's so funny that like he when we first meet him, like you said, with the Greedo. And is that Greedo?
It's Greedo.
Yeah, Greedo and the whole Han.
But the fact that he's got like even little details, the fact that he's got his legs up on the table too. He's got the legs up on the table, bro. Like that, the disrespect, bro.
Right.
Like you know what I'm saying?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like the level of disrespect, man. Like he's just like, I don't give a shit, bro. I'm gonna shoot you under the table. Like I'm like not just a gangster, but I'm a kind of gangster who shoots you in the balls, bro.
Yeah.
Like yo, shit. This guy shows no respect.
Yeah. Nah, definitely. So I think that's an important part of it too, right? Is like how he kind of grows from being that kind of selfish, jerkish kind of asshole, and then kind of grows into joining this rebellion.
But grows into it slowly, because even in the halfway through the movie, when Han wants to peace out, dude, because rewatching A New Hope, I remember that when he wants to peace the F out, like he's done. He's like, bro, this shit's whack. You're making me do way more than you paid me for. Like, I'm done. And he's like, whoa, wait. If we save the princess, you know what she's got? She's a princess. She's got cash money, bro. And then Han Solo goes, you said more money though? And he's like, yeah. If you save the princess, bro, think about how much riches she's got, man. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll stay, Luke. I'll stay. All right, let's do it. You see what I'm saying? Like the way he entices him is for more money. Like that's how level of scoundrel he is. Is the fact that it isn't even the good thing that he wants to do. He's like, it's not because he's got a good heart. It's because he's going to make more money. Right.
Exactly. And I think that's why that's so powerful and potent when he ultimately does end up making the decision to come back at the end and save the day. That's why that matters so much, because we saw him transforming into being the guy who doesn't care to the guy that does care. Yeah. And this is nice that he has that, like all three of the principal cast, like Luke, Leia, and Han, all kind of have their individual arcs too. Because when we meet Leia,
I was just gonna say, if you want to jump to Leia, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, she literally she's kidnapped, has her entire planet destroyed, and
that shit's dark too.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, a planet though? Not even like a family member, a planet.
Yeah, an entire planet. She's a princess. By the way, if she's a princess of a planet that's dead, isn't she like the de facto like queen or some shit? Or is she leader of anything now? Like, I don't know.
Well, they make her leader of the rebellion.
Or of the rebellion, yeah.
Like in Empire Strikes Back, she's literally the one giving orders. She's literally the one going like, you go here, you go there, and it's like, yo, shit, she's calling the shots.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So that's where ultimately I think that's her journey is growing out of that and it's also overcoming that and becoming. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I always interrupt.
No, it's good. No, it's good.
It's also her like learning to be less British at the beginning. She's so British.
Yeah, she's very British.
And then she goes so slow, loses it.
Yeah. And she just completely abandons it by the time the end is over. Yeah. So I don't know where they shot this movie in UK too. So that's why. Right. Yeah, that's probably why she was picking up a lot. Yeah. Of the British accents, but yeah, I don't know. It's just so funny. So Star Wars overall, it just means so much to like a lot of people in the fact that it encompasses a lot of the themes of maturity, right? Growing up and leaving your childhood and going on this adventure as an adult, right? And interacting with all of these people who reflect the same kind of struggles and stuff that you're going through too. So yeah.
You're right. It is like a very quick wake up call when your aunt and uncle are burned alive.
Yeah. That's pretty graphic.
That's pretty dark.
When they show the skeletons, I'm like, oh,
you're like, yo, that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, very much so. And it also is about obviously droid people and how R2D2 and C3PO.
Yeah, they're people too. They're people too. Yeah.
Shout out to L337.
Yeah, man.
The RB3's favorite part of Solo.
She should have liberated them motherfuckers, man. Like they were just trapped under the thumb of the oppressive Luke Skywalker.
Hey, there you go, man.
Yeah.
I've never seen such devotion from a droid. Shout out. That's a line that Luke says in the movie. And then Obi-Wan says, I don't recall owning a droid. Really, Obi-Wan? You don't recall owning a droid? So I'm pretty sure you know R2. And where the hell is your privilege and where the hell is your loyalty to R4? R4, man.
Ooh, R4.
R4, bro.
I haven't heard from that.
I know. I'm a prequel fan, so for me, R4 is like, bro, R4 just got his head cut off, and he goes, oh dear, in episode 3. I just rewatched that once. That was the last one I saw, so that's why it's fresh in my mind.
They don't care
but come
about
on,
the droids,
man.
Bro.
Come on. R4. No, Obi-Wan doesn't care about the droids. Other people do, like Lando, apparently. Let's jump into Empire Strikes Back. So Empire Strikes Back to me is obviously it's following up the big Star Wars fandom, which essentially was one of the biggest blockbusters of that time, and how everyone watched that movie. Like legit, everyone was watching that movie and rewatching that movie. They were so blown away by it, and the fact that following it up is like such a big task, and to do it, they did it in a very subversive kind of way, right? Where they literally kind of turned everything upside down and put the heroes in a scenario where they're probably going to lose, and they kind of do lose, right? And especially Luke, right? Because Luke is going into a scenario where he wants to train to be a Jedi, and he's trying to prove himself as much as he can to train to be a Jedi, essentially, especially to Yoda, because the whole movie is him trying to prove to Yoda that he can be a Jedi. And Yoda being like, no, you can't, because you're too old, or you're too angry, and you're too impulsive, and you're not ready to be a Jedi, because a Jedi has to be more than that. So it's that hero's journey going into Luke's training and going into learning what it means to be a Jedi, and also the philosophy of Yoda, which is very much like do or do not, and how like you have to take a bigger step into your mentality, and you have to learn to live in the moment and not in the future. You know, when he goes off like, I have to stop this, and it's like, you stop this by learning your skills now and then going to stop it, because if you go now, you're not going to learn basically what it is. And also, even when he says, you know, when Yoda lifts the X-Wing out of the swamp, and Yoda says, I don't, not Yoda, Luke says, I don't believe it. And he's like, yeah, that's your problem. You don't believe it. You don't believe. And that's why you can't be a Jedi. Cause that's kind of like Yoda's like clap back to Luke. He drops his staff. He's like, yeah, boy, and drops it. But that's his like clap back, is the fact that Luke is not willing to like expand his mind in order to believe the immense power of the Force and how it's literally everywhere and everything, and it's not just lifting rocks like Rey says and like Luke says in the movie too. It's like, lifting rocks is one thing, but that's too much. And he's like, well, no, open your mind, bro. Like, you can do a lot more. Right. Your third eye, bro. And I'm playing. It goes into different things. Whereas like the rest of the movie is dealing with Han and Leia, and Han's kind of a dick in this movie too, bro. Like, I've rewatched Empire Strikes Back too, and it's one of those things where it's like the entire movie, Han Solo is like kind of a little too hard with Leia, you know, like grabbing her hand and like holding her, and like Leia's like, let me go, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna let you go, and it's like, yo, hashtag me too. And it's like, yo, this doesn't hold up, yo, 1981.
1981.
Is that when the movie came out?
I think 1980 or 1981.
80, probably 80.
One of those, yeah.
But it's like, that's his whole arc throughout the movie, and obviously it goes into Lando and how Lando betrays him at the end, and how he didn't expect that. But
the brother stabbed him in the back.
The brother stabbed him in the back. That's right, yeah. But it's also the fact of like Luke going face to face with Darth Vader and realizing that he's not there, and subverting the expectations of like the hero's arc as far as like, you killed my father. Now, what is it? Inigo Montoya's? Prepare to die. Yeah. And for him, it's like, no, I am your father. It's like, oh shit. Yeah. So how does this work now?
One of the heaviest plot twists probably in
all cinema, man. Yeah. Honestly, but it's that subversion as far as like, he's going to get revenge like Inigo Montoya, and it turns out like, no, that is his daddy, and it's like, oh shit, that's his dad. Like, is he lying? Is he what? And it's like, no, that's his father. So how do you deal with the fact that the person that you've made your whole life to murder is your dad, right? And the whole movie is essentially that in a nutshell. It's about subversion. It's about realizing that the hero is probably not as cool as he thinks he is, or the villain is probably not as evil as you think he is, or all these kind of subversions of expectations that Star Wars kind of placed beforehand. It's kind of knocking them down like pins. I don't know if you see it that way.
Right. No, exactly. And I mean, that plays a big part into what makes the Empire Strikes Back one of the more compelling Star Wars journeys, right? Because you split up the characters, you send them on their individual journeys, and you come to learn and grow. Like each character has their own kind of level of maturity that they have to evolve into, right? Like we have to see Han Solo be confronted with death and what that looks like, right? Or being frozen in carbonite, at least not necessarily killing them, but like frozen in carbonite. You know, we see everybody coming to grasp with failure and with growth, and with how failing allows these people to grow, right? Like at the end of the day, everybody fails. Like at the end of this movie, like Luke obviously he doesn't even finish his training. Really, he just goes off and like jumps into action with Vader and loses his hand and everything, and learns that Vader's his father. And then of course like Han and Leia lose
because Han's frozen in carbonite.
Han is frozen, they barely make it out alive.
And taken to Jabba too.
Taken to Jabba,
so he's done basically.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, and I mean that's where. I mean, we could kind of, I guess when we talk about the original trilogy, we could even kind of mix in the newer stuff too, right? I mean, because that's kind of what the whole idea of The Last Jedi is too, right? Like failure, like all these multiple planets just failing left and right. And really, you look at these, you look at the old trilogy, you look at the new trilogy. I know people say, oh, they're not the, a lot of people say they're the same thing, but they kind of are. Like beat for beat, they're essentially the same kind of stories. Like at the end of the day, particularly, Force Awakens and A New Hope are very similar, but even Last Jedi and Empire are very similar in a lot of the same ways too, that, we just aren't, are a little less obvious than the Force Awakens, I feel like. But the whole idea of failure, the whole idea of people losing out and barely escaping by the edge at the end of it is something that resonates a lot with these new films.
And also like trying to remedy that fact too at the end of the movie, right? Because the whole point of the end of the movie is to like, let's fix what we just broke, right? And trying to fix what you just broke is a part of life kind of thing.
Right.
And it's a part of a process, and it's a part of, I guess in this case, war, right?
Right.
It's part of war. Like you make a mistake, you learn from it, and then you try to fix it in the next one. And the next one is Return of the Jedi. right. But that's kind of the whole point of The Empire Strikes Back, is showing how things that are broken can be fixed. And even, you're right, even in The Last Jedi, because it literally has Luke's broken lightsaber.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of The Last Jedi, I feel like, is kind of beat for beat. The training.
I wouldn't say beat. Well, you're right. The training.
Well, I'd say beat for beat. Like, pretty much. I mean, I don't. Because what happens in Empire Strikes Back? I mean, they.
You're right. That is a good point, because then Benicio del Toro is kind of Lando.
He's Lando, exactly.
Casino Bight is Cloud City.
The whole. I mean, they flip it a little bit. They put the Hoth thing, the Hoth imagery from the beginning of the movie. They kind of, or even the Battle of Hoth, right? Like the Battle of Hoth, the same kind of, except it's salt, not snow, but it's still the same thing with the AT-ATs too.
Yeah, so. My favorite line in The Last Jedi. It's salt.
It's like, thanks, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks for indicating.
You did it.
Yeah.
You saved Star Wars.
Nice. So yeah, that's so I mean, that's why, I mean, they share very similar kind of thematic connections, and like I said, the idea of failure, the idea of like resurrection too. I mean, I kind of feel like that's the whole idea behind Ghost Leia, is kind of similar to not similar, but we see Ghost Obi-Wan.
Oh, Ghost Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Did I say Ghost? What did I say originally?
Ghost Leia.
Oh, I'm sorry, I meant Ghost Yoda. Ghost Yoda and Ghost Obi-Wan. Right. That's where we see. I mean, those are very minor similarities, but the beat to beat, I think the Last Jedi and Empire does it. I think the difference with Empire and Last Jedi is like what. It's like the quality of those subversions, right? Like, in The Last Jedi, a lot of this stuff just kind of feels out of nowhere, and to be assumed, like, and I think that's where the film kind of loses it. Whereas I feel like Empire understands the stakes, understands the mythology, and kind of streamlines it down. Because I think that's where the main difference is. Where I feel like in The Last Jedi, for a lot of it, there's 3 different storylines, right? There's the Finn and Rose, and then there's Poe and Holden, and Luke and
Holdo, right?
Holdo, yeah, Holdo, and Luke and Rey. That's 3 storylines, and
Luke, Rey, and
Kylo-ish, yeah. But then really, you watch Empire Strikes Back, it's really just 2 storylines, right? Like Han and Leia and Luke and Yoda. So like that's where I think that they got a little muddled.
Kind of 3 with Vader looking for Luke.
Yeah.
Kind of. But yeah, you're right. Mainly 2.
Yeah. But you get to understand these people a lot more. Whereas I feel like The Last Jedi, I really didn't get to understand anybody.
Yeah.
Really all that much
more.
More.
Specifically
besides Rey, I think.
I think Finn and specifically Finn and Rose.
Yeah. Finn and Rose. And
my opinion, guys. Yeah. I feel like we did get pretty good with not necessarily Luke, but with Rey, I think we got a lot more, and I think with Kylo we definitely got way more.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Well, we learned a lot more about Luke's past before the whole 30-year gap.
Sure,
we learned a lot about that, and I think that's important.
And I think that was why overall the movie kind of worked for me, whereas like everything in Canto Bight just didn't work for me at all.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, and it's also the humor too, because I feel like I really have to talk about this because I feel like this is important, is the fact that if you really think about it, I'm going to get a lot of pushback for this, but everyone regards Empire Strikes Back as the greatest Star Wars movie of all time. Fairly so, because it probably is. It's the most competently written Star Wars movie. It's probably the best directed Star Wars movie. It's probably the best acted Star Wars movie. It has probably the better themes in the movie. Like, overall, it probably is the best Star Wars movie. One of the reasons why I believe currently, and this is another thing that I'm going to step on people's toes, but I told you about this 2 weeks ago when we talked about Deadpool 2, and also when I talked about The Last Jedi, I feel like Star Wars makes or breaks it, and this is one of the biggest themes in the prequels too, which we're about to jump into. is humor. Not The Last Jedi. The Empire Strikes Back is the least humorous Star Wars movie. Really rewatching it, I really believe that. The only type of humor you get in the movie is C-3PO kind of cracking shit at Han Solo, being like, Han Solo, the hyperdrive, but it's not even that like wild or wacky. Versus the prequels having Jar Jar in episode 1, and then in episode 2 having like ridiculous things happen with the droids and the Geonoses. Yeah, and then the conveyor belt, right? That shit's so stupid. And then in episode 3, it's the droids having the wacky voice and having all like the humor just doesn't hit. And then in The Last Jedi, it's you know, the humor just doesn't hit for me either. None of it. And there's a lot of it if people really rewatch it. There's a ton of humor that just doesn't hit. The Canto Bight humor is awful in my opinion. And I really do feel like one of the reasons that people, besides the well written, besides the well directed, besides the well acted, one of the reasons why the Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie is because it's the least humorous Star Wars movie. I'm sorry guys, but it's true. Like, stop putting silly poopy jokes into Star Wars, and maybe you will make a better Star Wars, or silly pork jokes. Sorry for anyone who loves porks, but it's silly. It's like, we don't need this. You'll sell toys no matter what. And it proves that by making probably the best quality Star Wars movie, and it's the least humorous Star Wars movie. The Empire Strikes Back, I don't know if you agree with that, but
I mean, there's still a little humor in there, but
there is.
Not.
But it's C-3PO being like, you know, you have 174 chances to shut up, C-3PO. Like, that's kind of it.
It takes itself very seriously. And I think that's
and then obviously C-3PO getting split apart, and that's the only humor in the movie. Like, I just rewatched it like a couple days ago, so for me, I'm like, that's kind of why it works.
Right.
It's because you're taking your shit seriously.
Right.
You're doing your shit. Versus like stuff like The Last Jedi with like this guy putting coins into BB-8, and I'm like, why?
Or man, what was that one? The fucking mom joke at the beginning of
the mom joke, or Hux in general. I'm like, this isn't funny, man. Like, I'm sorry. Or even everything George does in the prequels, like it just doesn't hit. It just doesn't hit. Like, stop doing that, and maybe you'll make a better Star Wars movie. Sorry, I just feel that way. Because I feel like humor is so subjective that it can make or break a movie. I don't know. The Empire Strikes Back to me works on so many levels, but that's another reason why a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that. That it hardly has any humor.
Right. I mean, the material is so serious. And, you know, I think that's, you know, we talked about how the first one was kind of like an analogy for World War II. I think this one's more of a commentary on the Cold War, right? There's like not a lot of action, but it's a lot of blockading. It's a lot of like threatening. I'm going to shoot you if you shoot first. Like, who's gonna, you know what I mean? Like that, how the whole empire and rebellion war kind of sparks is this, or battle kind of sparks is mainly because it's like I don't know, just the way the imagery is, like the surrounding kind of towering presence over like this small like rebellion force, like trying to, you know, trying to defend their blockage. I mean, that's really what like the kind of, that's like if the Cold War really did explode into something more than just being like, you know, talk and like, you know what I mean,
like the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right, exactly. That's exactly why. Yeah, exactly. Like how that would have ended if that was, and of course, like that's what each movie kind of represents, right? Like the first, like I said, World War II, and this one, like the division within, like the kind of the government corporatized side of the of the wars, and then of course, and we see in the last. Return of the Jedi.
Let's jump into Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, Return of the Jedi, much more of like we mentioned before, the Vietnam War, and that's something that George Lucas feels very passionately about. Again, like I said, he was originally going to direct Apocalypse Now before Francis Ford Coppola took over. So he's, you know, Vietnam is something that very much affected George Lucas and his perspective on like life and stuff like that. So it's just fascinating how. They're called Star Wars for that reason. Like, they're supposed to evoke the feeling of wars.
Of actual wars.
Correct. Yeah, just in space. You know, so.
Yeah, it's the idea of, like, the Ewoks representing the Vietnamese, like you just said, in their own territory, and how the Stormtroopers represent the bigger, technologically advanced army going into that environment, for sure. But it also deals with the duality of Luke Skywalker and how he's two sides of the same coin kind of thing, and how, you know, the idea of like a Dark Knight thing where it's like one push kind of brings him into the dark side versus not, you know, gravity. The whole speech that Joker gives to Batman at the end of The Dark Knight, where it's like all it takes is a little push for insanity or whatever, madness, because madness is like gravity, and that's the same idea of like the coin of Harvey Dent is like the coin of Luke Skywalker, of like dark side, light side, dark side, light side. It's basically the same thing. It's very thinly, subdued, because it's the whole yin and yang. It's the whole balance of the force kind of thing. And it's also about balance too, right? And we'll get more into that in the prequels, because I feel like the prequels kind of talks about that as well. But it's the idea of like, damn it, Game of Thrones reference. Jaime Lannister's line where Catelyn Stark calls him the most like unloyal knight or something, because he doesn't follow the vows, and Jaime Lannister responds by saying, "What if your vows of a knight are to follow the king, and the king hates your father, but your vows is to honor your father and respect your father, but the king wants to kill your father." It's like all these vows you take are contradicting each other, right? So it's that mentality of like, if I kill my father, am I the same person as my father? If I join my father, am I this? You see what I'm saying? Because it's the idea of like, your honor to your blood, to your family, can be the thing that destroys you, or it can be the thing that liberates your father, right? Because his love for his father is eventually what liberates his father, Darth Vader, to killing the Emperor and to kind of destroying the dark side and destroying the Empire, as we thought, because the First Order comes back. But as we think, right? Because it's that whole mentality of like, joining my dad into the dark side might be worse if I kill my dad, as I'm actually joining him that way, versus if I try to save my dad, I'm actually saving the Empire, and believing that there's hope, believing that there's still light inside a person that seems so dark. Right.
And I mean that's the biggest thing here in terms of the family dynamic, right? Like forgiveness, right? Like how can you forgive your father for, potentially, killing your mentor and really ravaging war on
all of humanity,
the entire galaxy. So it's very personal in the sense that it's about that connection, like you said, the balance and stuff like that. And that's a constant theme throughout Star Wars, right? Like
family,
you said, right, family, and that's why we understand Leia as being the sister from this point on, right? Like that. I mean, of course, it makes
no sense.
Yeah, makes Empire a little weird when they kiss, but it's that, I mean, that's what it is, though. It really is like how that connection between family is, kind of the same kind of connection that people have through the Force, right? Like it's that unseen, unheard of connection that you have between individuals, right? And I think that's where it really comes down to. And they kind of highlight that the most in Return of the Jedi. What I love about Return of the Jedi is I kind of love the opening of this movie a lot. Like this is probably my favorite opening of any Star Wars movie. Yeah. With like the Luke coming out
of Jabba's palace.
Right, Jabba's palace. That's just amazing. And
dude, I love Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. And
it's
then
good.
We see Boba Fett get taken out like a bitch with with
catch him in the Boba Fett movie, guys.
Right. That's kind of fun. I never got why he was made out to be such this badass character.
Badass.
He looks cool, but he got taken out by his backpack.
That's all that matters, man. If you look cool, that's all that matters.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's just crazy. But I love that. I love that opening sequence. And I think it really set the tone for like the pace of it. Now I know for example, like a lot of people, like JT doesn't really like this movie.
I know, and it's my favorite Star Wars movie. So
it's really your favorite. Okay, so I like it a lot too. Why is that? Why do you think it divides people?
Because this is the beginning, and again I go back to it. Obviously, people disagree with me, but this is the beginning of the George Lucas insert jokes. The Ewoks are silly as a hell. They're so silly.
I agree. Yeah.
But George Lucas loves silly, man. He loves them silly, and that's kind of the introduction to that. And it's also like the idea of Jabba's palace being like some crazy weird lounge shit that goes down, or like slave Leia and all that stuff that happens. Like people don't care for that stuff, and I like it. I think it's cool, and I think it's fine, and I think the Ewoks works within the Star Wars universe. So I mean, they're silly. I agree with that, but I feel like this is the real beginning of like the silliness,
the Jar Jars,
the kind of getting close to that level of like how silly, not funny, not humorous, but silly, kind of how that's gonna be. But I still love Return of the Jedi. And I fully, agree that Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars movie, but I'm talking about my favorite. This is probably my favorite one. But at the same time, it's one of those things where what I was talking to you about, the whole Luke and Vader thing, to me is takes the whole movie and carries it to the finish line.
It amplifies it.
It just makes it to me the best one because of how good that stuff is.
I mean, the ending is incredible.
It's incredible. It's so good. Like the face off between the Emperor, the realizing of the Emperor, the freaking Force lightning when he's like, Father, and he's getting burned by the Force lightning. Darth Vader contemplating what he's gonna do, like all that shit to me is like, this is me as a kid freaking crying my eyes out and being like, Vader, Luke, they're both wearing black. Black.
I mean, that also shows like the unifying kind of connection between them too. Yes. Right? Like,
and then how they both have the metal hand.
Yeah, exactly.
The metal freaking mechanical black hand that he has, the black glove that he wears around it. That's that connection that he has with his father. He's like, oh shit, I'm the same thing.
And I mean,
that makes the movie for me.
Right. I mean, to me, that whole ending, just the score, like when Luke is attacking him, like da, 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 da. Like I don't know. To me, that was like very, very, very amazing. But yeah, so I think I love Return of the Jedi as well. I think for me, it's probably my third favorite. I mean, a lot of people will say it's their third favorite. But
sure.
Like, for me, I probably rank it third as my list of like best Star Wars movies. Sure. But I definitely I love. To me, the best parts are the beginning and the end. That's where I feel is the most fleshed out, the most like.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and a lot of people say. I mean, a lot of people think that like Lucas really like ghost directed this one, too. So really, I don't know. But the middle section, though, I'm a little shaky on. I don't know. So with Lando, I don't know how does. You know, it kind of feels like it was like a little bit of a departure from what we saw in Empire Strikes Back with the Lando character in particular, because it just kind of felt like, oh, he's back to being the good guy again. You know, he's going to help them out. But I guess it worked to like define him as he is now. But
I think he just felt so bad about what he did. Right, he's like, shit, I made a mistake. Shit, I'm so sorry. I'm going to make up for it. I swear. Yeah. That kind of thing.
Okay, I feel that.
Yeah.
So yeah, Return of the Jedi, you know, it was the end of an era for a lot of people back in the 1980s. Star fandom, you know, Star Wars fandom so I don't know. They had a 16-year break between Return of the Jedi and Phantom Menace, which ultimately lands us into the prequel era.
And the prequel era comes to us now, guys. Yeah. So we hear the announcement that George Lucas is making the prequels, that it's going to be the origin story of Darth Vader. It's going to be Darth Vader before he was Darth Vader, when he was a Jedi. But he starts out, interestingly enough, when Darth Vader was a child, which to me was a kind of a curious decision, and by curious I mean weird. Yeah. It's a weird decision to do. Are you an angel? Never mind. I'm just gonna quote Phantom Menace. So yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about my introduction to Phantom Menace, watching it opening night when I was 8 years old, 1999 midnight. 1999. I was midnight, because back in the day, opening meant like midnight, not 7 p.m. Not 7 p.m. Because back in the day, it was midnight, and I was losing my shit. This to me was like a giant ice cream cake with pizza on the side. This was like, I loved it so much, man. Like I remember watching this movie and having that experience of like feeling so much joy and like oh, these guys are lightsaber battle and that third act and the Darth Maul. I talked about it last week when Darth Maul and the doors open and the Duel of the Fates starts. The dun, 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 dun. And then we see the hood and he pulls up his hood and he looks up and then it's like, we'll handle this. And it's like, freaking out as a kid, freaking out. But looking it back, it's funny because I rewatched all the prequels, and it's very interesting to see what George Lucas chose to do. And I feel like specifically with the Phantom Menace, there was something there. I apologize because I definitely think we're going to disagree, I'm sorry, on a lot of things when it comes to the prequels. But I feel like this one felt like the better attempt of Lucas trying to get something that was going to work. That's my opinion. I think this was the one where he's like, I think I got something going here. Like he's getting the swing of things and he starts swinging. And then when Attack of the Clones comes by, it kind of loses his swing completely. But I feel like overall, this movie kind of deals with the good and the bad of what Lucas was trying to accomplish. Obviously, it comes with a very political story.
Very political.
Incredibly political. Yeah. Like people don't understand how political this one was. The entire movie it's one of the funniest opening credits because it's like
Trade Federation.
The Trade Federation is currently outside the Naboo system with a blockade. Yeah. waiting for a peace treaty to be signed by the Queen Amidala, who's I don't remember all of this, but this is basically the introduction. Chancellor Valorum has sent 2 secret ambassadors who are Jedis to settle this dispute into the Trade Federation. And it's like, what the frick is going on?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on?
It's like fucking political talk.
Yeah, and it's like, what? Trade Federation blockades peace treaty signed to end dispute of what? What is happening? Viceroy Gunray. Like, it's so funny to see like how gibberish that George Lucas was talking inside these prequel movies. But at the same time, rewatching it, I kind of enjoy that shit. I love political shit, and I think it's kind of fun. But it starts out with how many switch and reverses this happens. But the Trade Federation have joined forces with a Dark Lord known as Darth Sidious, and he has an apprentice named Darth Maul, who is in order to go to Naboo to join with the Trade Federation. And then they're trying to get a peace treaty to be signed by Queen Amidala, which will let the forces of the Trade Federation enter into Naboo, which is basically their battle droids, their military, to enter into Naboo and basically take over Naboo as like a stronghold, as like they're trying to take over the resources and the power of Naboo, kind of thing.
Right.
And how Sidious is trying to mingle into that. And at the same time, he's whispering into Queen Amidala's ear and to give a vote of no confidence to Chancellor Valorum, because Chancellor Valorum wants to look into the matter. I don't know if you remember this, because I just rewatched the Phantom Menace a couple days ago. But he says that Valorum says, I want to look into your claims of battle and of war and of a military entering into your planet. I have to look into this. Will you permit me to look into this? He says this in the Senate meeting. And Amidala says, no, I won't permit you to look into this. We need military action now. Like, we need action now. And it's all about military action. It's all about jumping into war right away. It's all about security. And how the Chancellor says him giving a waiting period and him wanting to deliberate more is a political, bureaucratic, he calls it. It's like bureaucrats whispering in his ear to give a very political response. Versus if you give a vote of no confidence, basically saying push the Chancellor out of power and give it to someone else who's much more assertive and much more affirmative when it comes to military action, when it comes to being much more defensive and much more passionate about security and militarization. A chancellor that would give that more power, referring to himself, right? Because he wants to give more military power to himself. And then she does that and says, I give a vote of no confidence to Valorum. The vote settles in, and then they give the vote to Chancellor Palpatine, who obviously is the Emperor. But this is all basically they should call this the prequel of the Emperor, right? Because this is how the Emperor gets power. But it's all this political mumbo jumbo to talk about how the Emperor can use democracy to nationalize. This is very relevant nowadays too, to nationalize himself, to be like, I'm security, I'm affirmative action, I'm all about the military, I'm all about power, I'm all about rescuing people with pure action and with guns. Let's do this shit. That's how the Chancellor views it. And Amidala views that as like, yeah, this is what we need right now, because my people are about to be invaded. And how that's how he takes that power and uses that to basically, obviously, we'll see that in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, how he uses that to amplify himself. But that's what the movie is about. This is ridiculous. Like, you imagine putting this in a child's movie next to Jar Jar Binks, like, stepping in poop, and a little horse animal farting on him. And Tatooine. That's why this movie fails, in my opinion. It's because of the silliness.
To be honest, bro, you sat here and you described this whole thing for 10 minutes. I still don't know what happened. Any other thing.
That's because it's kind of poorly it's very poor exposition. I agree with that. It's you got to like squint your eyes as hard as you can.
No,
but tell me what you think about this movie, kind of looking back at it and rewatch. I don't know if you rewatched it, but like looking back at it.
Well, no, I did. I definitely did read up on a lot of politics that this movie was talking about, and you're right. Like that the whole trade for that's something that's used very commonly in like American politics too, by the way. Like to play on both sides of the coin, like to be like, oh, let's go to war, like let's get the war started, but also talk to the people you're going to war with and be like, hey, if we get this going, you know, they'll start arming rebels and shit like that. So like to overthrow the power, and that's what he ultimately does, right? He's trying to overthrow the power of Queen Amidala and all this stuff. So.
Yeah, but he's trying to stir up the other side to get them to poke the bear. And when the bear gets poked, he can be like, "Yo, you poked the bear," and then slap him with the bear.
Right.
That whole analogy I just messed up. But basically, what I'm saying is like, I start poking you, and I start saying, "Hey man, he talks shit," and he's like, "You talk shit, bro," and then I go on your side and be like, "Yo, he's fighting you, man." You see what I'm saying? Like I'm literally playing both sides by stirring you up to get to fight him, and then when you start fighting him, I join his side and be like, "Yo, why are you fighting him, bro?"
Yeah.
That's what the Chancellor does throughout the whole movie, throughout the whole trilogy, basically.
Right. Yeah. So it's just super fascinating how. They play into that, right? They play into the dual sides of like how somebody could come to power without having necessarily, you know what I mean? So it's super fascinating, and you know, Lucas really went off the edge, and like not off the edge, but like he really went deep into understanding what politics were in real life and how they could be applicable here. I mean, that's kind of the whole thing with the blockade is a real thing that was happening during like the Gulf War time period, right? Like they're occupying, what was it, like the Gulf you know, or whatever, and like they were, I mean, I don't know the whole specifics of that whole thing, but that's definitely like the whole idea of initiating the war and pushing this war forward through through action, through military action is what prompted us into going from the Gulf War and immediately jumping into the War on Terror, right? And how our whole push of like, we have to get a strong leader, we have to fight back against this, and going above congressional approval. And then we see that in Attack of the Clones too, right? Like how he initiates the clone army to go out and fight without having the approval of the rest of the was it the council? Right. And that's what essentially what it is, you know, when Bush signed that whole thing of not needing congressional approval for military action when it comes to fighting Al-Qaeda. That's essentially what it was, and then that's how that kind of power trip could ultimately lead to. Yeah,
for sure. And this whole we'll talk about the trilogy. I mean, the Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith more. But once we get into Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, it's pretty much exactly the Bush administration, right. Which a lot of people don't understand because they choose to ignore that fact. But that you literally see this and you're like, all right, I get what you're saying. Right. But for the Phantom Menace, what eventually falls flat, in my opinion, is the humor and is the silliness of it. It's Jar Jar Binks, guys. Come on, let's face it. It's Jar Jar Binks. Yeah, Jar Jar. But the fact is, I mean, it's George attempting to give children something to cater to in the middle of all this political mumbo jumbo is basically what it is. It's George being like, oh, this is kind of a lot. Maybe I should add a character who talks funny and who steps in poop and who goes blah blah misa blah, and kids will laugh, and it's like, you don't need that. You don't, trust me. Kids will cater to Obi-Wan. Kids will cater to Qui-Gon Jinn. Kids will find their characters. They will like someone. Like me, I liked Darth Maul. Right. And I think this movie delivers on giving, like I said last episode, the greatest lightsaber duel of all time in any Star Wars movie, in my opinion. My opinion, guys. Obviously, a lot of people say Empire Strikes Back, but I say this one, because it gives us the idea, and also Lucas talks about this too, but the idea of like the idea of like this weird, bizarre, demonoid creature type who's super silent and whose lightsaber is so bizarre that it has two blades. The fact that he's fighting with a bow staff, the fact that he's a ninja, basically, the fact that he's wearing all black, the fact that he has horns, makes him look so menacing and makes him have this sense of like a cultural outsider is basically what he represents too, because he's so bizarre in his fighting method, because he's so quick. But I loved him right away, and I catered towards him like immensely, which is obviously another reason why I freaked out in Solo. But it's one of those things where for me that's another great thing about the Phantom Menace that a lot of people don't talk about, and he is actually the Phantom Menace, right? Or it could be Palpatine as well, the Phantom Menace.
I interpret that as Palpatine.
Yeah. But I think it's both in my opinion, but it's one of those things where you can debate which one it is. But yeah, you're probably right. It's probably Phantom. I mean, it's probably Palpatine. But it's one of those things where having Darth Maul kind of represent that culmination of what a Sith is, because we heard about it so much, but what does it actually represent? It's all this weird, intense rage power that we see kill Liam Neeson, which eventually doesn't work out. And it's so funny how the end of the movie, man, I'm telling you, man, when Queen Amidala does a whole switcheroo, shout out to Keira Knightley who plays Queen Amidala,
right,
and then Padme comes out and he's like, I'm Padme, and then Boss Nass, shout out to Boss Nass too. That's another thing that it's like, come on, bro, why you got to put that in the movie? But it's also one of those things where when she gives the plan, it's so funny, dude. That scene is pretty funny because she literally says something like, she's like, I got a plan. Me and Captain Panaka are gonna go up and capture the Viceroy with our small guards using just us 5, and you 2 Jedi can join us. Meanwhile, the Gungans are gonna fight off the droids and try to hold them off, while a few of our ships go off and fly. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah. slow down. What are we doing here? Right. And it's so fast and it's so like George Lucas. right. That it's pretty funny to see how the ending of the movie is basically like the switcheroo that they pull on Viceroy and how they trap Viceroy and then kill Darth Maul because he's the biggest threat. Obi-Wan kills him. And then they settle into Naboo and push off the Trade Federation from invading, kind of thing. Through using the Gungans and using the power of Obi-Wan Kenobi, guys. But it's funny seeing that kind of thing and kind of jump into more of Lucas's crazy, ridiculous writing. Yeah. Being like so much mumbo jumbo that it's like, yo, slow down. Yeah. What is going on? You're 16 years old. Like freaking Queen Amidala is like 16 in this movie. Yeah. Which is another funny thing too, when she's like, "Are you an angel?" I'm gonna keep quoting that. Yeah. It's like, chill, fam. You're 8. I'm 16. Chill. That's your future wife you're talking to, man.
Oh, shoot.
I know. It's crazy. Thinking about that, right? Wild, Like, rewatching that, I rewatched it thinking about that. I was like, yo, that's your wife, bro.
Yeah, when she was 18, he was 10.
Oh, no, 16.
Oh, 16. No, but like, he's 8, like, in Phantom Menace? How old is he in Phantom Menace?
I think he's... That's a good point. How old is he in Phantom Menace? It's like 10. You're right, 10.
Yeah,
10.
It's just weird.
It's weird. It's still weird.
Yeah, I don't know, man. So it's just crazy how you know they.
But you didn't like this movie, though.
I didn't really like it. Nah, I mean, like it is kind of cheesy, bro. Like I mean, like when I saw the 3D re-release, it was just too much for me. Like it was too crazy, and then like. I do wish like the political stuff is interesting. I just wish it would have been shot better and like delivered a lot better too. Because it's very much like people standing in semicircles like talking about shit that I don't really, you know, like I wish it would have been it would have been interesting if it was like a House of Cards type deal, like some real, you know what I mean, like some real like intrigue, political type stuff, but done in like a really cool like Star Warsy way. But I don't know, it just felt like people talking to each other about it, and like I wish, you know, maybe if they would have shown the blockade or shown it from like the soldier from the foot perspective, right? Like if that would have been a much more interesting thing, I feel like too, like of exploring it that way. But I mean, we do end up seeing like a lot of the war stuff, right, in the next one. So
yeah, let's jump into Attack of the Clones. So Attack of the Clones, go ahead and finish your thought.
Yeah, no, I mean Attack of the Clones is the one where we see the whole fight break out, the whole shebang of like the plan coming to a head, the chaos beginning to arise.
This is another one that's pretty jumbled as far as exposition.
Well, this is my least favorite. This
might be my least favorite.
Yeah.
I only consider this. It's tough. It's tough putting least favorites to me, in my opinion, because I enjoy the prequels and I watch this sometimes. I have to take off my nostalgia glasses, which are like kind of permanently attached to my face sometimes. And I have just like, oh, I can't take them off. Or they're like nostalgia goggles, and I'm like trying to pull it off because they're so tightly around my face. But I had to take them off, and I had to like realize that at the end of the day, man, this movie's rough. The reason why it's rough, though, in my opinion, isn't the political I kind of like the political shit in this movie. The reason why it's rough for me is, oh my god, that love story. Holy shit. The writing in this movie is probably some of the worst dialogue in like any love story. Any love story, right? Maybe not any movie, but love story. Holy shit. It's like, you're just like I dreamed about in my dreams. How do I react? I just fucking saw you like 5 minutes ago, bro. I don't want to hear this shit. And it's like, stop looking at me like that. Why? Looking at you, how? And it's like, bro, chill, fam, chill. Like literally, I rewatched this movie and I'm talking back to the screen because I rewatched it by myself. Rewatching it, the whole movie I'm talking back to Anakin, and I'm like, chill the F out, fam. He's literally like freaking rape eyes with her, and like talking about how like you're just like I dreamed about. Now look at me the same way I look at you, and it's like, yo, chill. Or when they're walking up to the Naboo, the I hate sand part, and he talks about like I hate sand part, but right after that he starts like fucking like rubbing his hands all over her back, like her bare back, and he's like rubbing her back, and I'm like, you just met her once again after 10 years, like 2 days ago, and you're rubbing your hands on her back. This is awful. This is so bad. Like and then obviously it culminates into, and it's literally like cut back. The wipes in this movie are awful. You know what I mean by wipes, right? The little wipes, because it wipes to like Obi-Wan researching Camino. But then it wipes back to like freaking Anakin saying the weirdest shit I've ever heard. Weird ass shit. And then it obviously culminates into that beautiful scene of Padme wearing that weird choker dress. It's super tight latex dress, and Anakin sitting over the fire talking about how much they're in love, even though they just saw each other 3 days ago. I wish I could wish away my feelings. It's like, what is that? What is that line? Oh my God. It's so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, this dialogue is pretty rough. Pretty rough. No. The worst is when they get captured on Geonosis, and then they talk to each other right before they get right before they go out into the arena, and he's talking to her, and he's like, and she's like, I'm not afraid of dying. He's like, oh yeah, don't be afraid. And she's like, I'm not afraid of dying, and then she pauses, and she's like, I've been dying every day because I'm dying to be in love with you. And I was like, no, no. And then she's like, I'm in love with you. And he's like, what did you say? She says, I'm in love with you. And he's like, I thought we weren't supposed to be in love. And I was like, no, dude, no, George. I'm like yelling out his name. George.
George, what are you doing?
George, what are you doing, buddy? Buddy, George, buddy. It's so bad, dude. That's why this movie like face plants like 20 times. And it's also the acting is like, oof. Like the acting in Phantom Menace is stiff. Like it's really stiff, and it's like, well, this is awkward and stiff. The acting in Attack of the Clones by Hayden and even by Natalie, oof. It's bad. It's bad. It's real bad. So I think that's why this movie mainly falls flat. But when it comes to Obi-Wan's storyline's gangster. I mean, he's freaking chasing bounty hunters and shit.
Yeah, I love the Jango Fett scene.
Jango Fett's awesome.
That's my one favorite part of that
movie. Fight scene's dope. Yeah, that fight scene on top of the rain. Yeah. It's fucking cool, that's man.
That's the one scene in this movie that
Jango Fett was like my shit as a kid. I was obsessed with Jango Fett. I had the Slave 1, the Jango Fett Slave 1. I had the Jango Fett action figure with the removable helmet, so you could see Tamora Morrison playing Jango Fett. Like I had all the Jango Fett stuff. Like I was obsessed. Obviously, I was obsessed with Obi-Wan too, and I thought their fight back and forth and they're chasing each other was badass. And the fact that, let's get into the political shit now, how it's basically the Trade Federation has joined in with the Techno Union Army, has joined in with Count Dooku, has joined in with the Banking Clan to make a bigger federation that is building a bigger, better droid army. And then the Senate finds out about this, the Republic finds out about this, and they kind of take that as a threat, and they're like, yo, this is a threat to us. And at the same time, Obi-Wan is finding out that Count Dooku was the one who joined in with the Trade Federation, but at the same time got Jango Fett to create the clone army in order for Palpatine to already have cards in motion for an army preparing for the eventual Senate vote, because he knows the Senate's going to vote in his favor, right? It's basically the creation of an army and the threat of another army kind of thing. That's the politicization of it, right? Which is very much like
American politics. Where we actually find rebels and rebellions that a lot of times are actually fighting our same guys. You look into some of the people that the United States military are funding, particularly like the jihadist rebels or whatever. Like they're literally offsets of Al Qaeda and ISIS, and we're fighting ISIS. Like we're funding them too. So the reason why they fund rebels is obviously to overthrow governments, other governments. That's why they build. That's why a trade federation is building like this army to like
overthrow the republic.
Right, overthrow the republic. Right,
yeah.
But then like but then the republic sees it as is this Sidious or Palpatine?
Palpatine.
Okay, so
he has the same thing, but
yeah.
but he's Palpatine in the Senate. He's Sidious in the sheets.
Oh shit!
You know what I mean? He's Palpatine when he's talking to his friends, and he's Sidious when he's talking to Dooku.
Right.
Well, but it's one of those things where you're right. It's one of those things where it's like I have the authority. I have this is the famous like Misa give emergency powers to the Supreme Chancellor, like Jar Jar Binks' famous line,
right?
Where basically it gives him the emergency powers in order to counter a threat, quote unquote threat, because it's not a threat yet necessarily, but they consider it a threat to build an army and to give more power to the Chancellor to basically push the vote, basically say we don't need a vote, we don't need the Senate to deliberate. Less deliberation, more action, less deliberation, more army, less deliberation, more foot soldiers. Basically, is what it is, which is another commentary on war itself, right?
Right.
Where it's people given into more how a dictatorship and how nationalism kind of builds up into like security. We need more security. We need to get rid of these people who are against our ideals. That's even a line that Chancellor says in Attack of the Clones. He's like, these are against our ideals and our republic and what our republic represents. And it's like that's very similar to what a lot of people say about like the ideals of like, you know, what we represent and what is our values kind of thing.
Right,
and we use that as like they're trying to stomp all over our ideals. And we view that as a threat in order to build an army.
Right.
And that's what the rest of the movie's about. And he uses that as like a way to stay in power.
And that's real. I mean, look, like we mentioned before, George Bush enacted, for one, the Patriots Act that allowed, surveillance, open surveillance, and all that stuff, but also the act of where they don't need congressional approval because they think everything that's like foreign is a threat. Now we're living in 2018. There's no more Al Qaeda. There's no more ISIS. But yeah, we're still bombing 8 different countries. But without congressional approval because it's just become an oversight.
Yeah.
And because our Congress is paid off by the military-industrial complex, which I think is also interesting that they include the Trade Federation, because what I see is the Trade Federation, I don't know if this is accurate or not. It's more of like a private corporation, right? They're not like an actual like nation or sovereignty, are they? Like that's more of like a private thing, right?
I think so.
Okay, so
that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
Right. So then, like, they're egging on this war that helps them fund more that gets them more resources, that gives them more money, that allows them to put their clones on the ground to and fight the Republic while also gaining more control of
droids
it. Droids
on the ground, but
droids.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, droids. Yeah. But then the clone army is generated by the Republic? The Republic. There we go.
Yeah, it's funded by the Republic too.
Right. Yeah. And of course,
and it's approved by the Council.
Right.
At the end of the movie, obviously. At the beginning, it's not, but at the end, it is. The Council fully approves it.
Right.
Because they view it as a threat. Yeah, because it's basically the whole concept of like how the Jedis are being swept up into this whole thing, which also goes back to The Last Jedi, which, funny enough, even Luke says a line about that too.
Right.
How the Jedi kind of gave Sidious his power by kind of following his demands and following his orders and kind of following into his traps, and then realizing it too late, because they realized it in Revenge of the Sith, but it was too late by then.
Right.
But yeah, essentially that is what the movie is about,
right?
Which is kind of funny because it gets muddled inside the awful dialogue and then the awful acting and then the terrible lines that freaking Hayden says to Natalie Portman. It's pretty bad in that sense, for sure. It's bad. But I mean, it does say a lot of interesting political things, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest part of it. I know even at USC, the big hat film guy there, I mentioned him a lot, Drew Casper. He's the guy who is like the highest paid professor in the U.S. or something like that. Anyway, he's the film professor, right? He always he always said Phantom Menace was like his favorite Star Wars movie because of how political it was, right? I don't even, he kind of hates Star Wars, so I could totally see him. He's the one that teaches a Star Wars class, which is kind of weird. But it's just interesting that like that the politics is definitely what can be taken the most out of these trilogies of.
Sure.
And of course the third one kind of references a lot of modern politics too, right?
Yeah, like, let's jump into Revenge of the Sith. I mean, to be honest, I still have like a soft space in my heart for Attack of the Clones. But at the end of the day, I realize how terrible that love story is. It's not even as bad as you should have seen my commentary. I should record a commentary on it because it's so funny. I was giving commentary while watching the scenes in Attack of the Clones, the love scenes. But I was giving commentary on the part when they're on the grass and they're talking about politics, and then the music starts playing and they start like playing with the little creatures and they start rolling in the grass. And I was like pretending that I was like George Lucas directing them, and he's like, "All right, keep rolling around. You're in love. You're loving each other." And I'm giving commentary on it and stuff. And he's like, "This is great. Look how in love they are. They're rolling on the grass." It's like, no, that's not how love works. And it's like, Padme is watching Anakin like stand on a little horse creature, and she's like laughing. She's like, "Oh my, you're so silly, Anakin." It's like, oh my, and it's like, no, this isn't how love works.
Right.
It's so bad. And the scene where they're rolling around, it's so cheesy.
Yeah. That's
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
You can cut to that right now, RB3.
Annie, are you all right?
Anyways, that was just my last thing on Attack of the Clones. My viewing experience was pretty funny. That's all I'm saying. Okay. But now let's go into Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith is also, it's incredibly interesting. This was the last one I rewatched. This is probably, on a personal note, this is probably my personal favorite prequel movie. On a technical level, I still feel like Phantom Menace had better things than any other of these prequels, and it had less love story shittiness and less Hayden Christensen acting. I love Hayden Christensen. Shout out to the prequels, but it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. But this one might be my favorite, even though I feel like, oh my god, rewatching this movie, the jump that he takes is one of the biggest leaps I've ever seen any character take ever.
Which one?
Anakin Skywalker. Oh. He literally goes from like, yeah, let's do this shit, to like, I'm gonna kill little children. What happened here? 30 minutes ago, you were saving people, and now you're like, yeah, genocide. Let's kill some kids. After you see, let's kill some 4-year-olds. And it's like, yo, what happened?
Nah, man. Imagine seeing your boy fucking Mace Windu, Samuel Jackson, getting slapped around like a biatch.
No, I disagree 1,000%. This is my thing. I rewatched this movie.
Yeah.
The biggest badass in this movie is Mace Windu.
Yeah.
He's a dude. He kicks the Emperor's ass. Yoda freaking struggles with the Emperor. He takes direction. He tells Anakin to shut his little fuckboy mouth. Like the whole movie, I was calling him fuckboy. He's like, "Shut your mouth, fuckboy. Shut your mouth. Sit down." He's like, "How can I be on the council but not be granted master? It's never been." And literally, Mace Windu cuts him off, and he's like, "Sit down, Skywalker." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like, he to me is the best character in the movie, because he tells everyone to shut up. He takes initiative. He takes control, and then he takes initiative. And this is what I was going to ask you too, but I guess we can just jump to it. He takes initiative to kill the Emperor. Yeah. Do you feel like that was a mistake too? Because Anakin's whole thing was like, if you wait for a trial, he's like, wait for a trial, and he's like, he's much too dangerous to be kept alive. And I was like, fuck yeah, he is. Kill him, Mace Windu. Yeah. Me, that's what I was saying. But what do you think? Because I feel like, yeah, kill him. To me, he took the most initiative. To me, he was the biggest badass, and he kicked the Emperor's ass. Because later on in the third act, Yoda couldn't beat him, but freaking Mace beat. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, he baited him. He knew. The Emperor, I don't think he did. I actually think Mace Windu kicked his ass. I actually think Mace Windu is a better swordsman than Yoda is. Maybe not wiser, maybe not better Force user, but better swordsman. Yeah, I think he's a better swordsman than Yoda. Yeah, because he kicked the Emperor's ass, bro.
Yeah.
He just whooped him like nothing. And the Emperor was struggling too. So, and he just took advantage of the moment to take Anakin in. But what do you think of the whole, like, much too dangerous to be kept alive versus stand trial?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I mean, this is way before.
Did Mace make a mistake is basically what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, no, and, I mean, yes and no. I mean, the right thing to do is always to be, like, stand trial, you know what I mean?
You think so,
like,
though?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, but for some cases, it's different. I mean, like, you know...
I don't know, man. If you meet a terrorist and he's bombing, like someone's shooting up someone, I'd be like, "Fuck this guy."
Right. I mean, of course, in that context,
he just killed your homies. Too.
Yeah. I mean, of course,
he killed Kit Fisto. Shout out to Kit Fisto, bro, the guy with all the dreads.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The green guy with the dreads who smiles and Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, that was a homie, bro. He killed him in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I know what.
I would kill him too.
You know what? Yeah, that's true. But
it's also very Sith of him too, because right beforehand we see Anakin do the same thing with Dooku, how he killed an unarmed opponent. Right? He's like, I killed an unarmed opponent, and Mace does the same thing because what's his face is unarmed, Emperor.
Right.
Did you think he should have waited for trial and it would have been better?
I mean, no. I mean, but yes and no. But then also at the same time, it's like, what's the morally right thing to do versus what's the best course for action? Probably the best action what would have probably been to like kill him, but then like at the same time it's like or from a reality standpoint, why it would have been better not to kill him too. So it's different. I mean, it's a different. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
because Mace is the leader at that moment. I was thinking about it because I literally just rewatched this guy. So sorry if I cut you off so much. But Mace literally was the leader at that moment. Yoda was off on Kashyyyk. So the command goes to Mace because he's second in command. Because Yoda's first in command, but Yoda was on Kashyyyk, so Mace took basically an executive decision and was like, executive decision, I gotta save the Jedi. I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
Right. I mean, that's the whole thing of like, I mean, we kind of think about it much later. I mean, this came much later, but like, with the Bin Laden situation, right? Was it justified to kill Bin Laden? Or
that's good call, man. That's a great call. Keep going.
Yeah, is it justified to kill him because of his actions, or does he stand trial and face the correct criminal justice system?
Yeah, so. And this is I'm gonna step on people's toes too, but I think you agree with me on the whole like capture or kill thing. That was bullshit, right? Like I hope people know that, even from Obama, like Obama. I'll step on people's toes when I say this stuff, but I talked to my dad about it too, and it's one of those things where people assume that the idea of killing Bin Laden, and obviously you'll see Zero Dark 32, was like, oh, he pulled a gun. You pulled no gun, bro. I mean, we went in there wanting to kill Bin Laden. We went in there trying to capture Bin Laden, bro. We went in there trying to murder Bin Laden. It's not like, oh, we were self-defense. No, it wasn't self-defense. It was fucking tear shit up and let's kill Bin Laden. And that's a fair point. Was it like the whole like, should we have gone in to capture or kill? Because the mission was capture or kill, entre comillas, which is what my mom likes to say, which basically means not really, in quotes, basically, but it's not true. It's kill. Right. Basically, Bin Laden was the mission all along. Was kill Bin Laden. Was that fair? Was that a fair mission, or should have been capture or kill?
I don't know. I mean,
or do you feel like it was capture? Or do you disagree with me? Or Bin Laden.
For that situation, I mean, it was probably just kill him.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I agree, but that's what I'm saying with what's his face, Palpatine.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, bro.
But is that the right thing to do, though?
I don't know. That's why what is right. Right. Is right defending your because he felt at that moment. The reason why he said he's much too powerful to be kept alive. A lot of people misinterpret that line, in my opinion, thinking that he's got too much power, like physical power. I think he meant power in the Senate. I think he meant voting power. I think he meant influence. He's got too many people in his pockets. He's got too many people that if he stands trial, he already has people paid off that will get him off easy. If he stands trial, he already has people in the system that are going to, swindle his way out of it. But if I kill him now, he's fucked. He's dead. Because I'm more powerful than he is, kind of thing.
Right.
Physically powerful.
Right.
I don't know if that's how you interpret it, but rewatching it, I was like, that's clearly what he means. He clearly means that, like, no, let's not wait for... He literally says, I am the Senate, right before he faces off with him. Remember that line? It's like, I am the Senate. And it's like, he says it. Like, I'm all power. I have people in my pockets. I have the bureaucrats. I have the, everyone on the side, on my side, kind of thing. So if I stand trial, I'm going to get off easy. I got a good lawyer. I got this thing I got going on. I'm a good talker, like kind of thing. That's why he wanted to kill him.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where to stand on this. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
did you advocate for murder,
RB3? you make a lot of good points here, Ace. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just had to talk about Mace Windu because to me he's the best part of this movie.
Mace is the best part of the entire trilogy. Almost, I feel like.
I think it's Obi-Wan, but that's. I think Mace is the best part of this movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
Obi-Wan kicks ass too, though. I can't lie. Obi-Wan kicks ass in this movie. Yeah. Going after General Grievous, he's basically an assassin in this movie. Yeah. That's another thing too. Like, let's talk about that a little bit. How Obi-Wan's mission is to hunt down and kill General Grievous. Mm-hmm. That's literally his mission. They say as soon as General Grievous is dead, and Obi-Wan confirms the kill, as if he's like some sort of assassin. Yeah. I was like, yo, Obi-Wan is like James Bond right now. He's freaking Jason Bourne right now, out here riding on iguana horses.
The kill has been confirmed.
Seriously, that's kind of what it is because even Mace says it. He's like, Obi-Wan just called, he confirmed the kill. Yeah. Grievous is dead. And I was like, yo, fuck, like he's literally, his mission is to hunt down and kill Grievous. And he does, and he fucks him up, which, you know, props to Obi-Wan. But it's one of those things where it's like Obi-Wan is like a hired assassin. For the council. He's their gunman. He's their muscle. Right. Even when they're deciding like who should go on this mission, it's like, oh, Anakin. Anakin's like, I should go. The Chancellor says I should go. And then Ki-Adi-Mundi, shout out to Ki-Adi-Mundi, he's like, no, I think it should be Obi-Wan. Yeah, he's our killer. He's our guy. He can hunt down anyone. It's like, shit.
But see, is that the right thing to do for the Jedi, though? I mean, the Jedi are supposed to be the light side, right? The morally upright. But
are they the morally upright?
I mean,
I don't know. Are they?
Maybe that's why they keep failing.
That's why they keep failing. That's why Luke wanted to. Luke's. Oh, shout out to Last Jedi. Yeah. Is he right? Is Luke right in The Last Jedi when he says the Jedi maybe aren't necessarily the right Force users or the right people to take the gatekeepers of the Force?
Right.
That's kind of what he says. But I just think it's funny how he's like an assassin in this movie. But yeah, what do you think about Revenge of the Sith, especially as like from the prequels? Comparing it to the rest of the prequels.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the best. Yeah. But then I don't know, man. The acting still in this one is a little crazy to me. Like,
and the writing, too.
Yeah, the writing. Oh. I cringe so hard every time. They're like, when Obi-Wan's like, give up now, Anakin. I have the higher ground. And he's standing like 2 feet on top of him.
Dude, okay, guys, full disclosure. I rewatched Revenge of the Sith last night. And I love that line. And I love the idea of like, I have the high ground, Anakin. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground. Yeah. You underestimate my power. And he just like shakes. Yeah. Anakin's acting in this movie is so bad. It's like, you turned her against me. You have done that yourself.
You know what's...
I have brought peace, liberty, and justice to my new empire. Your new empire... Anakin, my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I literally memorized this whole movie.
That's funny. No,
if you're not with me,
you're against.
You're against me.
I was just gonna mention that line as like that's taken directly from the Dick Cheney thing of like if there's a 1% chance that there's terrorists out there, we have to get them. Like we have to kill them. Like that's literally
Batman and BVS.
Well, that's why I said Batman's a Republican. Hello, people. Did I not say
Batman is trash and Batman is hot take? That's why that movie doesn't work. Shout out to Superman, the real hero.
Yeah, but no, that's a literally word for word. That's what. It was Anakin or Obi-Wan who said that?
Says
the 1% line.
No, that's Batman.
No, but there's a 1% line in Revenge of the Sith.
Is there?
Or
I've rewatched it.
Or any chance?
No, he says it's as if you're not with me, you're against me. He says.
Yeah.
And he says only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes. There we go.
Obi-Wan says.
See, that's a testament to, again, that's the whole counter argument to the warmongering neocon opposition of like if there's any 1% chance we get them, we have to, it's like, yeah, exactly, only Siths that's dealing in absolutes is what's going to garner us more wars and more, you know what I mean? Like that's the true evil. You got to think more beyond this absolutes. There's nuances to politics, but that's the commentary. That's the one piece of political commentary I thoroughly like picked up on specifically in that scene. So
yeah. But it's interesting too to see Obviously, the biggest downplay, in my opinion, for this movie is, I already told you at the beginning of this conversation for Revenge of the Sith, is Anakin's jump. The biggest leap in character movie history, where he goes from like, hey, man, watch out for them buzz droids, Obi-Wan, to 45 minutes later, I got to kill some younglings.
Yeah.
There was video of him killing younglings, and then he turns from camera. The dialogue in this movie, I love it. It's so bad.
Yeah, dude.
When Padme comes back, you're breaking my heart. Yeah, it's like, you're going down a path I cannot follow. It's like, what? No one talks like that.
Yeah, that's just
and it's
crazy.
like, he told me you were killing younglings.
Well, then wasn't Natalie Portman supposed to have a bigger part in this movie, and then it got cut down?
I have no idea. This is. I just think the dialogue is hysterical in this movie.
I think the whole story of Natalie Portman in this thing. I think she was supposed to have a bigger part, and then like she was bullying Keira Knightley on Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones.
Oh, really?
So and George Lucas just got so mad at her and like literally
no way.
Cut her
she might have been kind of fed up with it too, in my opinion too, because I think there's an article talking about how Natalie hated doing these movies.
You can't write. You could type this shit, George, but you can't write it. This is one of the quotes. But yeah, so
yeah, she had a negative feeling towards this, and it's funny rewatching the Phantom Menace behind the scenes. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
Really a throwaway line, like it's literally kind of off screen and not even on camera, but the behind the scenes guy captures it, where Rick McKellen, the producer of these of the prequels, literally says to a guy, like just a random conversation in the background, he's talking to him, he's like, hey man, are you going to I forget what he says, like Chicago tomorrow or London tomorrow? And he's like, no, I'm actually I'm flying to New York real quick to meet up with Natalie. She just wants to read the script because she hasn't read the script yet, and she's a little nervous about signing on for 3 movies before reading the script, because I mean it's kind of a lot for. And he's literally talking about how Natalie's nervous to sign on for these movies because she hasn't read the script and she's not really like she doesn't have a lot of faith, and it's so I'm like, yo, it all comes back full circle, man, full circle. How like Natalie didn't like doing these movies even before she even shot the first scene.
Right.
And even in the auditions with like little Anakins, you could see how bitter she is. She's like, really? I'm acting against these 9-year-olds who like never acted before. It's so funny. Natalie Portman. Shout out to Natalie Portman. Anyways, the jump from Anakin's character for me is like, it's too much for me to swallow. Like, I get it. Saving your wife, having the potential power to save life is the whole running theme within the dark side of the Force. But the idea of cutting Mace Windu's hand and then unlimited power, which is another great line from this movie, and then killing Mace Windu, and then he says, what have I done? And then Emperor says like, oh, you're fulfilling your destiny, young Skywalker. And then literally 10 seconds later, he's like, it's like, bow before me, and it's like, yes, my master. And I'm like, two seconds ago, you just said, what have I done? You just killed the leader of the Jedi, Mace Windu, and now he's like, you must go to the Jedi Temple and exterminate the Jedi. And I was like, huh? Wait a minute. You literally just went from like, this is crazy, I'm debating this, to like, okay, I guess I gotta kill thousands of Jedi, including little children.
Right.
What? It's too much of a jump, man. I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's just like, okay, that's a little much. I get killing separatists and shit and killing rebels, but like killing all the Jedi, like what? I mean, maybe Mace Windu because he's like a rebel and he wanted to kill the Emperor, but like all the Jedi, what did they do? That to me is kind of hard to swallow, considering it's like this is people he grew up with. Even the little kid recognized him. He's like, Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What do we do? And it's like, what? He's gonna murder this little 4-year-old?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely. I mean, I don't know, man. I kind of never really checked into this movie. Like, if I'm being 100% honest, like, so I don't know. Like, I guess that is a big character jump, but it's also, like you said, he was driven by power, and I guess the dark side leaking into him. They always mention how he's had that little bit of darkness to him to begin with. So, of course, he's gonna lean more into that side. But yeah, I mean, overall, I kind of feel like this movie I said it's the best out of the prequel trilogy.
I agree, yeah. But it's my favorite out of the prequel. I would still say Phantom Menace is better, just on a production design, on a costume design, on a score. It's just baller in Phantom Menace. The action is better in my opinion. Just Jar Jar drags it down in my opinion. I still think the pod racing scene's kind of cool. Like I just think this one is I prefer this one because I think Obi-Wan as a bounty hunter assassin is kind of cool. Yeah. I don't know. I think this. I agree. This is probably the better one, but I still think Phantom Menace might be.
I feel that.
But at the end of the day, let's talk about a little bit more about the themes before we finish up. At the end of the day, he creates the Galactic Empire, and then Natalie Portman has his famous line saying, this is how freedom dies with thunderous applause, right? I think she says freedom or liberty. This is how liberty dies with thunderous applause, signifying how the emperor builds the empire by destroying the opposition and saying how there will never be more opposition ever again, and there's never going to be war ever again because I'm building an empire built around security. He says security, right? He says peace and security because security means more soldiers. It means the shutdown of the clone army and the recruitment of, obviously, the stormtroopers in the Empire, right? So that's kind of the bigger theme at the end. But also, I want to finish up by saying about the Force, because the Force is all about balance. And the reason why the Sith are evil is because they want to take everything off balance, right? There's a scene where Anakin tells Yoda his visions. Anakin's like, these are my visions. And Yoda is like, let him go because death is a natural part of life, and that's part of the Force, is like this natural cycle of balance of life and death. And Anakin's like, fuck that, I want to save Padme, right? And it's this idea of like taking something that's not natural and taking something off balance is what the Sith want to do. They want to have the most power, the most life, no death, immortality, save everyone you care about, and step on everyone you hate, right? So it's the idea of balance in the Force, which obviously comes into the new trilogy too, which is all about Rey and balance, and Kylo Ren and Rey, kind of obviously in The Last Jedi, but even in The Force Awakens, where we see the balance kind of balancing out between good and evil, life and death, destruction and construction, all these kind of themes coming into play. And that's kind of at the end of the movie, obviously, when it says Sith deal in absolutes too. What do you think of those themes in the finale of this movie?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they're pretty big. They're pretty big themes, and it kind of encompasses what a lot of the Star Wars thing. The Star Wars themes come to represent as a whole, right? And then, of course, they're written after the original trilogy, but all that stuff kind of leads into the original trilogy too, to a certain extent, right? Like, what is good versus what is bad? What is the absolutes and on both sides, and how finding balance is striking somewhere in between, and finding the good and the bad, and the bad and the good. And of course, like you said, the whole themes of and the whole themes of love and stuff that we see through Padme stuff evolves into the overarching themes of family that we see inside of the next trilogy, or I guess the previous trilogy release date wise, but the next trilogy chronologically wise, like how family manifests into more than just more than being just the atypical, you know what I mean?
Blood relative.
Blood relationships.
Relatives. Blood relative. I like how bloodlative. We're just combining words. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what stands out the most to me is like, how those themes kind of carry into the larger kind of synopsis. Because I mean, at the end of the day, George Lucas considers this all like poetry, right? Like it's all supposed to rhyme with each other or whatever. So you definitely feel that throughout these prequels.
Yeah. So ranking the prequels, you would go what?
Revenge of the Sith, then Phantom Menace, and then Attack of the Clones. Of course.
Got it. Yeah.
But I mean, like, to be fair, like, I only really consider like Revenge of the Sith like passable. You know what I mean? Like that to me is like probably put like Solo and Revenge of the Sith like around the same. Like I don't hate Revenge of the Sith though. I don't hate it. Like it's not like, it's probably like if I put a number on it, it's probably like a 6.5 out of 10 or something like that. So around the same Solo, you know.
Cool.
But yeah, dope.
If I'm being honest, guys, I love the prequels. Again, I can't. It's hard for me to take off the nostalgia goggles. So for me, I grew up with these things. For me, the reason why I love Revenge of the Sith the most is because of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and this is where I really started to fall in love with the character even a little bit more than the previous prequels, because I really saw how he was. Talking about nuance and talking about to me, he's the most nuanced character. To me, he's the most like he pushed backs against the council. He pushes back against Anakin, but he's also on Anakin's side. He also shows compassion, but he also shows anger. He shows the ability to hunt down and kill, but at the same time the ability to show compassion for Padme and watch over her children, right? With Luke, watching over Luke. To me, he's the most nuanced and the most fluid character within the prequel trilogy, but to me, he shows the most in this movie of being a military general, badass, but at the same time, genuinely a good guy who wants to do the right thing, right? And he values life and he values people, but at the same time, he still has a mission. He's still kind of a soldier at the end of the day, right? But he's still a mentor. I don't know. To me, Revenge of the Sith brings up a really cool Obi-Wan, which is why I want to see this Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, continue in an Obi-Wan spin-off movie, because I feel like what we got at Revenge of the Sith was just it led up so well between Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and then Revenge of the Sith with the building of Obi-Wan's character. That's why I love Revenge of the Sith the most out of these prequels, but I honestly enjoy the prequels quite a bit. I like them. There's a lot of negative with them, but there's a lot of positive. There's also negative with Last Jedi, and there's some positive with Last Jedi. I feel like it's difficult to follow up stuff like The Empire Strikes Back, and even Return of the Jedi, which to me is classic, or even New Hope, which is another classic. It's just hard to follow up those original trilogy. And Lucas tries his best and fails a lot with the humor, in my opinion. But I enjoy the prequels for what they are, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I would also go Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and then just because of the love story in Attack of the Clones, because it's really bad.
Yeah.
And then I would probably go Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, A New Hope.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So nice. For me, the original trilogy, probably Empire Strikes Back, and then A New Hope, and then Return of the Jedi. Not shitting on Return of the Jedi. I actually really like that movie a lot.
Yeah.
To me, it's like 10. 10. It's like 10. If I would do 10, I'm not giving Empire Strikes Back a 10, but it'll probably be close to a 10 for me.
Sure.
Some of my favorite movies. Probably if that was like the 10 status for Star Wars, it'd be like 10, 9.5, like 8.5, and then probably put like Force Awakens like right under. Like, where would you rank all the Star Wars films?
See, dude. Honestly, I literally talked about this last night with a buddy of mine. It's so hard for me to rank all the Star Wars movies, and everyone's doing it, and it's like all the rage right now. And it's like rank the Star Wars. It's so hard for me because I just literally explained it. I can rank the trilogies because I feel comfortable for what they are, because I realize what the prequels are. I realize that they are not good, not perfect movies, but I realize that I try to take their intention more than anything else, which is probably a negative on my part because that's not what a critic should do. So I can rank it based on me, and I can rank it based on quality.
Okay.
Well, so
would you rank it based on you?
On me, I would rank. See, but it's hard. Return of the Jedi, I would probably put as my favorite ever Star Wars movie. Probably Empire Strikes Back following that. Probably Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace.
So you don't like A New Hope?
This is I love A New Hope. Are you kidding me?
But
I love A New Hope.
You putting it over the prequels?
Again, this is my nostalgia. All right, you want me to take my nostalgia goggles off?
No, go ahead.
I'll take them off.
No, go ahead.
A New Hope, Last Jedi, Force Awakens. Oh, just the trilogies, right? Because I'm not counting.
It's up to you, yeah.
Yeah, just the trilogies because I won't count the spin-offs. Last Jedi, New Hope. I'm sorry, Last Jedi. I already put A New Hope above a Last Jedi. Then I would put Last Jedi. Then I would put Force Awakens. That's the last one, right? And then Attack of the Clones. Okay. At my last.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Through my nostalgia goggles, through my quality goggles, I would say Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope. Then I would put Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones.
On both of these, you rank The Last Jedi higher than Force Awakens.
Yes.
Okay.
I like Last Jedi better than Force Awakens.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Because I feel like the good of the this is all subjective, guys, but I really feel like the good of The Last Jedi is better than the good of The Force Awakens.
But is the bad of
the bad of The Last Jedi is better than the average of The Force Awakens.
Really?
The bad of The Last Jedi isn't balances out with the average of The Force Awakens, in my opinion. Because The Force Awakens is so introductory. It's so introductory in my opinion. It's so like linear, flat. That for me, at least The Last Jedi showed us Kylo Ren going ham. At least The Last Jedi showed us a bitter Skywalker and a Rey who wants to delve into a little bit more, versus a guy in a mask who kills his father Han Solo, who we find out at the very end, and a stormtrooper who rebelled.
All right, I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if I were to rank them, I probably have just one ranking for all of them.
Okay.
So I'd probably put like, yeah, of course, Empire. I'm gonna include the spinoffs in here just because I don't know. I just thought about it, I guess. When I thought about it, but like I feel like I could include that without like being fair to them at least. Like, so I put Revenge of the Sith. I'm sorry, Revenge of the Sith. Jesus. Not that. I'm sorry. Empire number 1, New Hope number 2, and then Return of the Jedi number 3. I put Force Awakens number 4 because I still really like that movie a lot.
Okay. I like Force Awakens. I put it at like my number 5, so don't trash.
I put Last Jedi as my number 5.
Okay.
Rogue One number 6, and then probably Solo.
And then Revenge of the
7.
Sith.
See, Solo and Revenge of the Sith almost like flip flop.
Okay.
So, I mean, I put Solo there for now, but if you ask me every day, I could put Revenge of the Sith like right there too, and then Phantom Menace, and then Attack of Clones.
Got it.
So
cool. Yeah. Again, guys, it's difficult for me to rank them because I feel like it's different when it comes to Star Wars movies for me. Because when it comes to any other movies, even Marvel movies, I can rank Marvel movies. I can do it like I don't care. Like I just like whatever. These are my favorites. But when it comes to Star Wars, it's hard because I just have so many deep nostalgic memories with each one of them and how they make me feel and how certain scenes make me feel, and it's all this stuff. So, like the Phantom Menace fight is like better than almost an entire movie for me. Right. You see what I'm saying? Like that to me within itself. If I just watch the Phantom Menace and just rewatching that fight scene, I can enjoy that more than like Rogue One. And it's like that's just me personally, but at the same time, if I take them all, if I would have to rank them based on quality, then it would be different. But I love every single Star Wars movie for one reason or another, and that's hard to say from any other franchise, and I know you probably don't, but I do. Even the Attack of the Clones, which a lot of people feel it's a pretty bad movie, I love the movie for different reasons. But again, guys, these are my opinions. Don't worry if it doesn't match up with yours, because people start to worry and get mad and get upset and they have to type. But it's not for anything for you guys to worry about. So anyways, guys, that concludes our conversation on Star Wars. We've talked enough about the new trilogy. Plus, I feel like the new trilogy is stuff that we can do in reviews. So plus, we got into it a little bit with the new trilogy, I feel.
Yeah, I think we got adequately.
I like the new trilogy. I just feel like if it has to finish strong, because if it doesn't, it's kind of weak. Yeah. Because otherwise, I didn't like a lot of what happened in The Last Jedi, but I liked a lot of the main story in The Last Jedi, if that makes sense. Everything with Rey and Kylo Ren I liked. Everything else I kind of didn't like, which is a lot of the movie, but whatever. So if J.J. Abrams takes that and runs with it and makes something interesting, then sure. But if not, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know if you agree or not, but I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully JJ doesn't fuck it up.
Yeah, so. Hopefully not. Yeah. I really feel like there's this weird fandom conversation about JJ saving Star Wars, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because if he really does undo some of the main themes that we got with Rey and Kylo Ren, I think it'd be super dumb. That's just my opinion, guys, but that to me would undercut not just The Last Jedi, but the whole franchise as a whole. So we'll see what JJ does, but those are our thoughts on the Star Wars franchise and how I am very much a Star Wars fanatic who will always love the movies and who will appreciate each and every one of them for what they are. I do want a little bit different in what they're doing, but hopefully we'll get that with the future movies. Fingers crossed. Any last thoughts from you, RB3?
No, I think that just about does it.
All right. Leave us in the comments down below. What is your ranking? What is your favorite? What is your favorite character of Star Wars? What do you think of the conversation? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments down below. And be polite. Be nice, because we like nice people, and we will read your comments next week. I promise we will read your comics next week, guys. All right, guys. From the Meaning Enough podcast, I'm Ace.
This is RB3.
And we are peacing out, guys. Peace out.